This is Greg Pruitt, formerly of the Cleveland Browns, and you're listening to The Sports Fix.
Sports Fix listeners, like us on Facebook today. Facebook.com/The Sports Fix.
Business owners and professionals, do you want to take your business, your product, your team, your event to the next level? You want to advertise right here with the Sports Fix. Our listeners are among the most loyal listeners, terrestrial or internet. The Sports Fix universe is not only the radio show, but tens of thousands of fans on Facebook and Twitter. Email me, Jerry Myers, thesportsfix@AOL.com. That's thesportsfix@AOL.com. And let me help you swing for the fences and hit it out of the park right here on the Sports Fix.
Portions of the Sports Fix brought to you by Fantasy Jocks. Visit fantasyjocks.com, your fantasy sports superstore. Championship belts, rings, trophies, and more.
Live in Ohio, it's time to get your fix. The Sports Fix.
Welcome in, live, on the air, off and running. Let me tell you, it took a lot to get today's Sports Fix on the air, behind the scenes. Tough morning, but you know what? You don't want to hear that, and I don't want to talk about it, because we're on the air, and that's all that matters. Off and running, wrapping up your week here. End of the week edition of the Sports Fix, and we've got a good one on tap for you. We've got, of course, the Cavaliers last night did their part to help make it a good one for us today. Give us some fun to talk about. Absolutely just dominant. Oh, destroying. I mean, I could put a lot of adjectives before I finish it and say Cavaliers victory over the Clips last night. Unreal. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about that at the beginning. You know what? I'm going to make sure, because I know that we're going to get bogged down. Jonathan Knight's coming on. Jeff Gorman's coming on. We're going to get bogged down into the Browns and the incredibly awesome week that was for the Cleveland Browns. You know, par for the course, and I know that. So I gave us a little protection here today, you guys. We're going to talk Cavs at the beginning of the show. We're going to start this bad boy off right. And then Eddy Jansen, Cavaliers beat writer from More Than a Fan Cleveland. He's going to join us at the end of the show. Piggyback right on around. We'll talk some more Cavaliers. We'll preview the games this weekend, Pacers and Lakers and all of that. So we'll make sure that we insulate ourselves from the usual awesomeness that we're going to have to talk about here as well during the show. As I said, Jonathan Knight, sportswriter extraordinaire. He'll be up with us just about 15 minutes from now. We'll jump in, talk some Cavs, some Browns, some Tribe. I'm sure we're going to do a little bit of a whole lot with Jonathan Knight, as we always do. Jeff Gorman, beat writer, Browns101.com. He's here every Friday. We're going to talk, of course, well, there's no doubt where we're going to go with him, as it's all built in there. Browns101.com. Well, Browns101.com would be a sad class to take. Sad class to take sometimes. But, hey, we're not going to do all that either. Let's talk about realities, and let's talk about salute. Oh, hell, I don't know. We'll see where this thing goes, but we'll talk about all of that in the NFL offseason and all of that, not just Brown stuff here. Jeff Gorman from Browns101.com. As I aforementioned, Eddy Jansen, More Than a Fan Cleveland, batting clean up, taking care of some business in the back half of the show as well, as we'll talk more Cavaliers, guys. So I'm feeling good. I mean, well, can't lie, full disclosure, I'm feeling all right. I'm feeling better now that we're on the air and now that we're off and running and doing the thing. Hopefully you are too. Let's do this thing together. Welcome in to the Sports Fix. Those of you here perhaps for the first time, or those of you that are here each and every day. Well, if you're here each and every day, you can probably pretty much do the rest of this spiel here by heart, because you hear me say it every day. Welcome in live across the Sports Fix radio network, joining us live here every weekday at noon, whether you're listening on TuneIn's radio app worldwide, on Spreaker and Mixler, on their respective digital and mobile applications. Perhaps you're enjoying the show live right off of our home base, thesportsfix.net, the mothership, the one-stop shop of everything you need to know and everything you need to find about the Sports Fix. It's all right there as well. Welcome in each and every one of you guys that listen, thousands of you every day around the world. different time zones abound, too. I always laugh about getting comments in the middle of the night from people, and I'm like, well, that would be right, because you're about 14 hours behind us. But welcome in, listening on digital delay 24/7. Places like iHeartRadio, the internet, world's largest, it got me all over the place, the world's largest internet radio provider, on iTunes and Stitcher Radio and SoundCloud and all the podcast platforms. However you join the show, you feed it, you subscribe it, you download it, all the things that you do. Thank you guys for doing it and being with us here. As we say each and every day, can't do it without you. Without you, I'm just a cat talking into a microphone, and it's going to echo right back because there's nobody out there. You guys make this bad boy run. Of course, I'm your host, the big daddy on the microphone, J-Rocc, Jerry Myers. You guys, though, are the voice of the Sports Fix. Hit us up 24/7, 216-539-7535, 216-539-7535. Hit us up 24/7 or hit us up live right now. Phone lines are open, 216-539-7535. As I tell you guys, when you're listening in those different time zones and on delay, hit us up anytime. We'll play your message on the show. That's what it's all about, you guys. Hit us up. Charles is throwing out T's in the chat room. Everybody's getting technicals based off of last night, man. All I'm going to say is if you got a problem with that, you may be in the wrong line of work. I don't know, man. That was a little thing coming out of last night. Chris Paul, I guess, got himself some controversy going now. I mean, I get it. We got to be correct and all, but you can't criticize. Well, you can't criticize the officials. I get it, but extra touchy because you can't criticize the female official. But anyways, we'll get into that. It doesn't matter. They got steamrolled. They were criticizing a whole lot of people. Down 31 points at one point in that thing before the Cavs let some gas off in the fourth quarter. But we're going to get into that. Facebook and Twitter, if you can't call, facebook.com/thesportsfix. Tweet with us at thesportsfixcle. Email us, thesportsfix@AOL.com. Facebook.com/thesportsfix. Tweet with us at thesportsfixcle. Email us, thesportsfix@AOL.com. Let's start right there. Talking some Cavaliers, Cavs hoops here, and last night that, seriously, you guys, as we talk, obviously you're at a dirty dozen now with the winning streak, so that does a lot of the talking for itself, but that's a hot team. Teams can get hot. That can happen, but the manner of which this team has done. You know what? Look at last night. Remember we were talking yesterday how you kind of got an interesting test here heading into the break because you've got a couple of teams that you've already played early part of this streak. Clippers were the second team that the Cavaliers beat, and of course, on that LA trip. And now here you come again. And I mean, it was domination. Now, granted, the technicals, we were just joking about that, but the Clippers got in their own heads and they made themselves a bigger bed to lay in. But it doesn't matter. I mean, from the beginning of this thing, man, the Cavaliers came out and they went to work and they beat a hell of a team. That's the Clippers, man. That is one of the top teams. Oh, by the way, I'll tell you, one of the most encouraging stats that I heard last night, I knew that they were being successful against the West, but yeah, that was another victory. I mean, 8th one there last night against the Western Conference teams. The top. I mean, they're being successful against the teams that you want to see the Cavs be successful against, which is really encouraging there. But man, second time around, remember the first time these teams played, it was 126, 121, no defense played. It was just a track meet showing it off. And then, you know, that the Clippers love to play that style. Last night, man, the Cavaliers were a different team defensively than the team that the Clippers saw a couple of weeks ago. And they were saying that to a man after the game last night. I mean, you guys can see a different, we talk about it every day, the defensive intensity, but there's a different defensive ferocity out there, man. I mean, was the one, and it's leading to the offense. I thought the best play last night, that was a perfect example of that. It was about midway through the third quarter, near the half-court line. Somebody went to pass the ball. I can't remember if it was Chris Paul, but LeBron was on the ball carrier, jumps up and blocks the pass so hard it just smacks off the face and just bounces right across, right into a long alley-oop, not alley-oop, a long outlet feed down for the big jam at the other end, and they were ferocious. They're in the passing lanes. The defense of this team has completely changed. I mean, Charles Barkley said what everybody in Cleveland already knows. This team, especially defensively, changed when they acquired Timofey Mozgov onto this team. I mean, that really did change the whole way that they could play defense. LeBron, for whatever he went through with his time off, he came back in a different mindset. He came back much more supportive of his head coach. David Blatt now looks like the genius that a lot of people thought he did, and that'll change again when the Cavs go through their next rough. Although it's hard to see. I mean, when they're playing like this, I told Eddy Jansen earlier this morning. I said they had better not be peaking now, because this is what peak Cavs could look like here, and it is friggin' scary if you're another NBA team out there when they're especially defensively and it's all running off of that side of the ball. But I mean, LeBron came back with a fresh mindset and a fresh way of approaching this situation from the head coach on across, and everybody follows suit. What your superstar does, everybody else is going to do as well. I see you in the chat room. I was going right there, Charles. J.R. Smith. First day that we're talking about Mozgov, and he is the big man that makes the difference. It's how the schemes funnel in defensively. But the first trade that set up the second trade for Smith and Shumpert. Shumpert was a no-brainer. That's a dog defender. He's going to come out here and really add some length and some defense to this team, and that's something that the Cavs need. And J.R. Smith is just a throw-in, and we all said that because J.R. Smith had I got to tell you, you guys know that I occasionally venture into some sports video gaming. I do a little Madden, a little NBA 2K. You would laugh if you listen to the commentary on the game when you have J.R. Smith in the game, because they tell all the J.R. Smith stories about the fines over his career and overseas, and he was fined $1 million one season overseas. He's been fined over $1 million in his NBA career. They told a story. I laughed. I said, I gotta tell this on the air. I don't know if you guys have heard this. The story, one night apparently while he was playing for one of the overseas teams, he decided to order $3,000 worth of room service all night long. Ordered room service, and when he was asked the next day why, he said he just wanted to see if they'd keep it coming. He just wanted to see if they would keep it coming, and they kept it coming. So, anyways, team had to pay for that. They weren't too happy. But anyways, all of these stories that we hear, you guys know about the nightlife stories, and if you haven't, Google search it. J.R. Smith is an urban legend in NBA circles for a whole lot of different reasons, man. From untying cat shoes to his nightlife activities and all of that social media fun that he likes to have with some of the female fans of the game. J.R. Smith came with a whole bunch of baggage, and everybody was like, man, this is and I even said, hey, wait a minute, is this just an older, more disgruntled version of Dion Waiters? I'm not going to lie, I had no faith whatsoever in J.R. Smith. You guys know what I'm saying, and nobody did. Everybody was like, well, we'll take him if we have to because it got us Shumpert and it helped us get the pick, and then we moved it over for Mozgov. So let's let's see what Smith adds. Man, J.R. Smith, and I joke when I say we talked about that article where he said there's nothing to do in Cleveland but play basketball and video games, and so that's why he's been staying out of trouble and playing so well. But whatever it is, and I joked with some buddies, I said, well, that didn't help Johnny Manziel at all. It doesn't keep Josh Gordon out of trouble. I wish those guys would play a few more video games too. But J.R. Smith, and I mean, this is going to sound crazy, but he's been nothing short of a model teammate and player since he came over here. Whether it was getting out of the mess that he was in, and hey, man, those guys were like, hey, we were looking at a bad season and we turned it around and ended up in a really good situation. Could be one of the best situations in the NBA. So that has got to reinvigorate you. But whatever it is, I mean, really, Charles actually sent me a message last night. He goes, hey, man, you really should give some props to J.R. Smith. And I'm like, brother, I'm 2 steps ahead of you, man, because I watched him play last night, and he's playing defense. Last night, he's just out there on both sides of the ball, and you're going, you know what? maybe there's bad stuff that'll come out later. Like maybe his attitude will change. I don't know, and I don't want to predict that. But you never know where things are going to go. But for now, man, J.R. Smith is a difference maker with the way he's come in here and really just bought in to what the Cavs need him to do. You know, we can joke about he's never met a shot that he'll pass up, but it's more than just that, man. He is, and you know what? He's always been the kind of guy that's had the ability to play good defense. I mean, his problem has always been in his own head and then all of the things that come with that. But thus far, now, none of that has been the case here. It's been nothing but good. And I figured, you know what? Hell, I spent quite a few, 10, 15 minutes after that trade going, boy, I don't know what we brought in here. So I figure I at least owe the opposite now, man. Got to be fair because J.R. Smith he's been putting it down out there for the Cavs. That's a big reason. Last night, we've talked about Kevin Love, and I'm not one of the people that says just trade away Kevin Love. I told you guys, as long as he can give you what he's been giving you while he's not, figuring it out, still trying to struggle into the offense, take it. Take it and run with it and go with it. It was funny last night. If you guys listened to the TNT feed, listening to Charles Barkley and Reggie Miller go back and forth about the Cavaliers because Charles Barkley kept saying, well, the Cavs, LeBron, they want Kevin Love to just stand outside the three-point line, and he can't do that because he should be posting up. And Reggie Miller, who sees the game a little differently than Charles does, and it was funny because he eventually brought Charles around to his line of thinking. He goes, no, Charles. He goes, on this team, you do unfortunately need him out more because you can't clog up the lane because you need Kyrie and you need LeBron to be able to drive to the hoop. And so, and it was just funny. They were going back and forth. But right off the bat, the Cavs came out intent on getting Kevin Love the ball, getting Kevin Love involved in the offense, and they did just that. Boom, couple of three-pointers and a hook shot to start things off. He had 8 points right away, 10 in the first quarter, got himself rolling. And last night, and you know what, too? Before people go, up, they figured out how to get Kevin Love involved. Here's the side of that is they did get Kevin Love involved, but then Kyrie took a back. That's the thing. He took a back seat, and you're going to see that. I mean, that to me is the thing about having a quote-unquote big three. Having three main targets like that is there's only going to be the rare night that you get all three of them funky like a monkey all night long. You know what I mean? You're going to get 2 out of the 3, and it's the other team having to figure out which 2, and then when they do bottle them up, bam, you've got the third genie in a bottle to come out, and that's where it starts to be effective. But last night, Kyrie peeled back as part of the offense, and they went through Kevin Love. They got him the ball, and you know what? That's a great way to get the ball into him, and it was a perfect game for it. But that rewards a guy at the end of a week where, well, what's up with Kevin Love? He's struggling, but he's hustling. He's getting rebounds. He had 15 boards the other night. Bam, every couple games, you put the focus on Kevin Love. You run through him a little bit. He gets some touches. He feels good. He gets some points on the board. That's how this has to work, is one night, Kyrie's going to get 55. Another night, LeBron's going to have a triple-double. Another night, Kevin Love's going to have a big 25 and 12 or something like that. And your role players will chip in as well. But you can't look for every night the Cavs' big three to be out there hitting 20, 25 points a game. That's great, but that doesn't happen. It's just so what we saw last night was an element of that. But it was good to see. They actively, right away, went after Kevin Love. You could tell that David Blatt was intent on saying, okay, we'll squash that narrative now. Tonight, we're going to work through Kevin Love, and we'll work our way through there. And they worked their way through it all. I mean, we'll get back to this. I've got the break. I've got Jonathan Knight coming up here next, and we'll talk to him. It's fun watching these Cavaliers. But, last night, just a walloping of the Clippers. Eddy Jansen from More Than a Fan Cleveland. He'll be with us in hour 2. We'll circle back to the Cavs, talk more about last night. And the Q was rocking, and they sure had something to rock about. We'll talk about Indiana. You've got the Lakers here, another national TV game. Eddy Jansen will be with us later. We're going to hit the break, come right back. Jonathan Knight, sportswriter extraordinaire, joins us next here on the Sports Fix. We'll talk about these Cavs, how much fun he's having. Probably going to talk about that other team here in Cleveland that plays with the pigskin, and we'll talk some Tribe as well. Hey, Victor Martinez. Oh, we haven't even gotten into that. It should only be a bump in the road for the Tigers. Could you imagine the apoplectic seizure that Indians Twitter would have went through had the Indians went and got Vic this past offseason, and then he gets hurt like he does, busts his MCL. He's going to have surgery, probably looking at 2 or 3 months on the shelf to start the season. Well, training camp, spring training, and then that much. But anyways, we'll talk about that. And all Cleveland sports, Cavs, Indians, Browns, who knows where we're going. But we're going there with my man, the sports writer extraordinaire, Jonathan Knight, next when we come back here on the Sports Fix.
You can't touch this. Break it down.
Get your fix.
Cause it's Friday, you ain't got no job, and you ain't got to do.
It's the Sports Fix. We'll be right back.
Hey guys, before we go to the break, I want to talk to you a little bit again about our good friends at Harry Buffalo North Olmsted, the UFC, the Ultimate Fighting Championships, some of the hottest fights in the world today. Each and every one of their huge events, Harry Buffalo is one of the few places in Northeast Ohio you can go there and watch each and every UFC fight at the Harry Buffalo. And let me tell you, I've been there. The people are out the door. They are to the rafters. It is one of the craziest environments for some UFC fights. Wing Mondays, they've got great deals on wings and drinks, and every day of the week there's a different special, a different deal. And don't forget the Bison Burger, the unbelievable. It is the combination of a fantastic burger and eating healthy combined into one unbelievable sandwich. You have got to get a Bison Burger while you're there. So whatever you're looking for, whatever day of the week, Monday through Friday, Saturday, Sundays, there's something for you at the Harry Buffalo North Olmsted, just outside Great Northern Mall. Check them out today. Harry Buffalo, join the herd.
The Sports Fix is on iHeartRadio. Download the free iHeart app today. Subscribe to the show and get your fix. Fantasy sports lovers, you put so much time, hard work, and effort into playing week to week that it quickly stops being a fantasy and starts getting real. And when the smoke clears, you want to show off those victories with a real prize.
I mean, a really real prize.
Nobody does that like Fantasy Jocks. The crew over at Fantasy Jocks have beautiful, high-quality, and heavy-duty championship belts, rings, trophies, and so much more for all your fantasy sports needs. There's literally only one place to go. FantasyJocks.com.
Here we go, bring it on in. It's time now. It's all city. We got to do it for them, dog. We got to do it for Cleveland. They're waiting on us. Define what we're about. Let's get it on.
Every single night, every single practice, every single game, we got to give it all we got because they're going to ride with us. Everything that we do on this floor, because of this city, we owe them. We're going to grind for this city. They're going to support us, man, but we got to give it all back to them. We get it done. The toughness that we have on the court is going to come from this city. Everybody, the whole city of Cleveland. That's what it's all about. It's time to bring them something special. Let's go. Bring it on in, everybody. Let's go. Hard work on 3. Together on 6. 1, 2, 3. 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3. 4, 5, 6. It's all us. Cleveland on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Hey everybody, this is Jerry the King Lawler from WWE, and you're listening to the Sports Fix.
Welcome back to the Sports Fix Live here on the Sports Fix Radio Network. Cleveland sports keeps us going round and round, as I'm sure we're going to be reminded here in our next conversation. Sports writer extraordinaire Jonathan Knight, my man, joins us every Friday here on the Fix, and we'll run the gamut here, no doubt. We're starting Cavs, though, man. Starting right back where we left off. Cavaliers last night again. Big victory, you guys. Keep the comments coming in. Facebook.com/thesportsfix. Tweet with us at thesportsfixcle. I told you guys, I insulated us today. Cavs open it, Cavs close it. Whatever happens in the middle, we can wash it away later on. So don't worry about it, because I know we're going to need to do some washing here momentarily. Let's pick up there. Welcome back into the show. I'm J-Rocc. Coming up on the hotline, Jonathan Knight, sports writer extraordinaire, and you here on the Sports Fix. Let's go to the phones. JK, my man, how you doing this afternoon?
Jerry, I'm doing well, and yourself, sir?
Hey, I am fantastic, man. I mean, for about the next 3.5 minutes until we start talking about you know what. But other than that,
please, no, Jerry. I don't want to talk about that.
Wait a minute. What is this hashtag here? Browns Free Friday is trending in Cleveland on Twitter right now as we speak. Browns Free Friday is trending here on Twitter. But, boy, we're not going there yet. But, boy, they just continue to talk about apoplectic. That word fits there. But we were having some fun before the break talking Cavs last night. Seriously, we can have fun on a winning streak and every team gets hot. But that was one of the best teams in the NBA on the other side of the court. That was a Western Conference power. And that was a team, because I was saying yesterday, and I don't know if you heard right before you called in, but these three teams here, you got Chicago, you've got the Clippers, and there's the Lakers here. They're all teams that you met earlier in this exact streak that you're on. I thought, well, that's a good way to see growth. The Clippers were the second team that you beat, and there was a track meet that night. Both teams scored like 260 points combined or something like that, and this was a different performance last night. Cavs up 31 points at one time before they let off the gas and emptied out the bench a little bit. But, man, that was an amazing performance. This Cavs team is something coming together into something very fun to watch, man.
They truly are, and there is a symmetry to this, because it's really that the first time they played the Clippers was when this streak really began. I know it officially started to beat the Lakers the night before, but that was not terribly impressive. It was really winning in Los Angeles against the Clippers the next night that everyone's kind of sat up and said, oh, wow, that's a little different. We haven't really seen that from these Cavs, these new Cavs anyway, since their remodel in the new year, and that really started it. And last night, I honestly had a bad feeling going into last night, because they had not looked good against Philadelphia on Monday. I know they won, but they did not look good, and it looked like, are they kind of running out of gas, or they're due for a bad game, and they haven't been, as you said, they hadn't been playing terribly great teams through much of this streak. I mean, there have been a few of them, but you thought, oh, here come the Clippers, and they're ready to sort of avenge that previous loss. And boy, that was the opposite. That was not what I expected, and it was wonderful to see them play that well with the first team. I mean, that was really something. So not only are you seeing that, yes, they can follow up a victory over a good team with another victory over that same team, but you can see the improvement that they have made just in these 3 weeks that this winning streak has been on. Not only a completely different game, but much more dominating on the Cavs' part. And yeah, you've got to like what they have done, where they are going, and what the future holds. Because, there really is. There's some tests on the horizon, to be sure, but this is more like what we expected. This is sort of like what we thought this team would just be like all year, not knowing that there's more to it than that. But boy, the Cavs sure have pressed the right buttons here in midstream to get this ship righted and get them course corrected and go into where they need to go.
I got an interesting side story along those lines, too, about last night's game. But defensively, man, the way this team is coming together, I guess the easy example to use is because people always, the big three, they point back to LeBron's Miami grouping. But, man, lately, they are truly reminding me defensively of what made those Heat teams so dangerous, because those teams were the best defensive. When they were at their peak, they were the best defensive team out there, man. They just smothered the passing lanes and just played a type of defense that was very, very hard for especially a team that wasn't as strong as they were to keep up with. And man, we saw some of that last night. The ferociousness that they were attacking the passing lanes and the straight man defense. Shumpert with an open court steal last night was a thing of beauty. You don't see a lot of the clean pick, where a guy just gets the open court steal like that. And no matter what you attribute it all to, the defense that this team is playing is what has truly got me feeling that this is more than just a hot run, more than just a good regular season team. That is that championship level defensive intensity, the nature, because they're doing it so fast that you can tell they're not thinking about it anymore. It's just happening.
And you don't see that usually in midstream, in the middle of the season. You don't see a bad defensive team become a good defensive team, even if they do make an overhaul of the roster. Usually that's sort of like a pitching staff in baseball. You don't suddenly get a good pitching staff. You either have one or you don't. you may add a piece here and there. And yeah, so I mean, it is mystifying in a way, because that's not really supposed to happen. And even when the Cavs did start wheeling and dealing, you thought, okay, well, they'll throw some Band-Aids on this thing and try and just get the ship to port. But and there are a lot of things, and you mentioned a few of them there. You can point to. You can point to the improving defense of LeBron and Kyrie and some of the different things they've been doing. The thing I keep going back to, and I think at the end of the day, we'll see how this season unfolds, but I keep coming back to Mozgov and the acquisition of bringing him in. I mean, he just seems like, I know there's other guys to it, and he's certainly not the MVP of this team or the most important player on this team, but I look at bringing him in as really the piece, the missing link, the missing piece that this team needed, that everything then just fell into place when you had him, when you have a legitimate center, and that's something they haven't had for years, honestly, and certainly not this season. And just when that fell into place, and LeBron coming back healthy is another factor as well. But I feel like that's less of a factor than Mozgov and the role that he's playing. And even if he doesn't score, even if he's not picking up rebounds, just that you have this beast in the middle. And you've seen it. I mean, the defensive statistics of the Cavs have soared, and you look at it specifically. You look at field goal percentage. You look at points per game. It's down something like 15 points average per game. What the Cavs were allowing, and what they're allowing now, it's incredible. And you watch them for 5 minutes with Mozgov on the floor, and you can kind of get a sense of why. Is all of those easy layups, all of those easy shots that teams were making and scoring easy points through the first couple of months of the season, now they're having to fight for them just because there's this massive piece of furniture sitting in the lane that is going to make you work for it. And that's a huge difference, and the Cavs needed that so desperately. So I think everything is that's the spoke that is, everything else is rotating around, and I love it. I think this comparison has been made before, but going back into Cavs history, and you look at the Miracle of Richfield team and acquiring Nate Thurman early in the midway through the season, and that was he was not the most important player on that team. He didn't even start for that team. He was a backup, but that was the piece that brought it all together, and this feels a lot like that.
If I remember right, the Cavs were middling a little around or under 500 when they made that Thurman trade, and then they went like something like 40-something and 20 the rest of the way, and that really unlocked that team. Barkley, I brought it up earlier. He said point blank last night, Mozgov changed the Cavaliers' season. And I know you said, well, he's not an MVP, but man, part of me when I talk to my friends goes, but isn't the definition of MVP like the one that makes it all happen? And for whatever reason, I'm telling you, if the Cavaliers season ends up at any place where they want it to end up, that's no brainer. The thing that brought it all together, man, was that deal. It really did change the way everything comes together for these guys, man. And it is a lot of fun to watch, absolutely. And as I said too, looking at how they're playing, I mean, the Cavaliers playing well against the good Western Conference teams. They didn't do badly even in the beginning part of the season against the West, but because that's where I really judge it, you know. I mean, the East is what it is, man. And I mean, by the way, while we're talking about that, what's your thoughts about because I know some people are old school and don't like changes, but you hear the NBA talking more and more, and I think it may be as soon as next season, perhaps, that they dump the standard 8-seed conference seeding here and go with the entire NBA rankings as far as the playoffs and no more Eastern and Western, because if you look at it, there'd be 3-4 Eastern Conference teams and the rest would all come from the West if you were ranking down the top teams. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, does that start to get like it's not as sacred as when you start talking interleague play and baseball and stuff like that? What are your thoughts? Because I think, man, part of it is it's tough, man, to be 10, 15 games better than a team in the other conference that, makes the playoffs at sub 500, and you couldn't make it with 45, 50 wins, And
I hear that. I respect that view, but at the same time, I think that to do something like that would be very reactionary. I think this is a temporary thing. I think, yes, clearly the Western Conference is better. It has been for the last couple of years, but you can't really honestly believe or point to any evidence that it's always going to be that way. There have been years in the past where it's gone the other way, and I think that's just part of sports. I think that's part of not just the NBA. I think you can look at You can look at the NFL has certainly swung back and forth that way, where better teams may lie. And if you really want to get smaller than that, especially in the NFL, you can look at certain divisions. Like, how is it fair that, I mean, this year we saw it with Carolina, when it barely had a winning record, didn't even have a winning record, and still winds up in the playoffs and gets a home game and hosts a team that had a better record than they did. I think that's just part of sports. That's part of your structure. So I don't know. Well, I'm not opposed to it in theory. I think there may be some merit to setting things up that way. I don't like the idea of doing it because most of the better teams are in the Western Conference right now, and some of those teams may get screwed a little bit or have a harder path to the finals than teams in the East. I don't like doing it for that reason.
I hear you there. I listened to something Adam Silver was saying there yesterday, and I like the one suggestion. If you're going to change it, I like the idea of still obviously having the divisional winners. So all 6 divisional winners, you would still respect that. And then the 10 remaining playoff seeds would simply be based on the best 10 records. If you were going to change it, I mean, I like that better than just going, top 16 regardless, because then you might as well throw the divisions out and just have everybody play everybody and see what's left. But I hear you there too, because there was times in my childhood where the East was the dominant conference for a long stretch of time, and all the tough teams were in the East, and then there was times it was the other way. So I hear you there for sure, and you can definitely see it.
And if there's something, I mean, you brought it up too. If there is something I think the NBA could stand to lose, it would be the divisions. What in the world good does that do? Like the Cavs, they just surged in the first place in their division last night or the night before. Who cares, really? I mean, it's all about where you are in the playoff seedings, and now you know what? Some weight in there as well. But does it really matter? Are you really going to wear with pride a Cavs Central Division champion? I mean, that just doesn't. Even compared to football and baseball, I think there is a little bit of cachet to winning a division. In the NBA, no, that just really doesn't mean anything.
I agree with you there. Now, here was another thing a buddy and I talked about, and maybe instead of overhauling everything, I wouldn't be opposed to mandatory 500 or better record. You can't be sub 500 and make the playoffs. So if the 8th seed but then you still have conference playoffs, and then how do you put Western teams in the Eastern Conference playoffs?
Well,
you know
that's
what I mean?
it, and that's the thing is because if you change the playoff structure, you'd also have to play the way the regular season is scheduled, because that wouldn't make sense to have the Cavs only playing the Clippers twice, and then they play them in the first round of the playoffs. Like, that just doesn't make sense. And that's part of it too, is why some of the teams in the Western Conference, you can't really judge them by their record because they're beating each other. To use that old SEC football argument, you have a tougher game every week, and you're going to lose a couple because you're playing tougher competition, and that's totally true. I buy that argument. But now, if you can't just change the playoffs, you have to change everything. Now you play everybody the same amount of games, and that creates some problems. Now you're only playing, the Cavs would only play the Bulls 3 times a year. If you play everybody in the NBA, you play every team 3 times. How does that work? How does that? You play 2 at home and 1 on the road. I don't know how that works. There still has to be some sort of weight. There has to be some sort of division in any sport. There's just too many teams to have some sort of a balanced schedule. So, I don't know. That's why I think that's what's ultimately going to trip up some of these ideas, is because once you start pulling on that thread, the whole sweater starts to fall apart. So I think things will probably stay pretty close to the way they are now.
Yeah, we'll see what they do. I just figured I'd ask you while we were talking about that. I kind of fantasy projecting, it's hard because I would love to see the Cavs in a 7-game series. Just looking at all the East and the West and the teams that are all in the hunt, man. You look at the West teams and you could go, wow, Cleveland and Golden State would be a hell of a 7-game series. You can go through all those teams. Memphis, I think Houston, Portland, obviously the Clippers that we just saw the last 2 games these 2 teams played against each other. Even though the Cavs ran them last night, Clippers are a good team, and it was as big of a victory because the Clippers started getting in their own heads with the technicals and they started losing their minds a little bit. But, the Spurs, Dallas, we're down into the lower seeds, and those would still be great 7-game series. When I look at the East, seriously, to me, I don't worry about a series. I'm not an Atlanta fearing guy, but there's a couple teams, Chicago, Washington, that I'd like to see, but not much. But when you look over to the West, you go, man, any one of those would be a tough 7-game out for the Cavs to play pretty much any of the top 9 or 10 teams over there in the Western Conference.
Sure, and that's, and the to be perfectly selfish for Cavs fans, like, well, you only got to play one. At
That's
the most,
right.
You're only going to play
That's
one
right.
of those guys. Let them beat each other up, and then you only have to face one of them. And yeah, you can argue that's not fair for the Western teams, but like I said, it's a pendulum. How many times did the Cavs get screwed because they were always had to face the Bulls? Like, how many times would they have made the NBA Finals had they been in the Western Conference? They would have made probably at least 2 or 3 appearances. And, I think that changes the course of of franchise history. So is this sort of a karmic payback? Maybe it is. You can complain about this all you want. Over time, it all evens out, I think.
No, that last statement wasn't. I was done with the seeding. I was asking you as a basketball fan. Isn't it kind of, man, you project out and you go, boy, Cleveland, Golden State, those teams, any of those would be a very good 7-game series as a basketball fan. I'm sitting there going, man, I'd love to see that. You know what I mean?
Oh, sure, yeah. As an enticement
That's what I mean.
At any point in the playoffs, sure. But I think too, though, you still sort of have that hierarchy that you don't want a really good series too early. And maybe this takes care of itself, maybe it doesn't. But particularly when you look at the Cavs and their record it's now starting to shape up and look good, but. And where they're placed in the standings right now, they would be the 3, and they play the 6. Yeah. But in reality, they're right now the way they're playing, they got to be one of the top 2 in the East, if not number 1. And so the seedings and who you match up with you may wind up with not exactly, and it may be a better series, but I don't know that you want the better series in the first round. You kind of want to. The way the NBA playoffs are structured, this thing lasts 2 months. You probably don't want to blow your wad and have a really good series for whatever reason real early. You want to build up to that a little bit. So who knows? This we'll see what happens. But I think that this is going to open up a can of worms. You start talking about changing things around. But yeah, ultimately you do want the best 16 teams or however many you're going to end up doing in the playoffs. You'd rather see a team that won 50 games that just barely makes it in rather than a team that won 38 and is the 6th seed, which has happened before. So, yeah, there's any number of ways you can look at it.
I'll tell you what, too, looking at that, you talked about the seeding there. Charlotte, Miami are under 500 there in the East, but the Cavs, right now they would play Milwaukee. But I want to ask you, I've had a couple of friends of mine, we've kind of made our own thoughts on this, man. 10.5 games is what the Cavs are back from Atlanta. And at one point, it was like 19 games before they got on this run. But 10.5 back, second half of the season to go. What do you think? How much of that can the Cavs close? I personally don't know if they can overtake Atlanta. It depends on how Atlanta plays in the second half, but I absolutely believe they can finish the number 2 seed. They're only 2 games back from that right now. But how much of that? Do you think they could cut a lot of that 10.5 back? How close do you think they can get to the number 1 seed?
Well, they really can, and I think assuming that they keep on this course and they stay healthy and all of those things. Yes, they are on track to easily overtake and become that number 2. The hole may be a little deep to catch Atlanta. That's hard to catch somebody in 30 games when you have a 10-game hole. That's tough to make up. You'd have to have a situation where Atlanta really hits a wall and plays 500 or worse from here on out to catch them. So it's possible, and really not a huge deal. The really big thing is the Cavs. For the Cavs, I think you want to be on the opposite side of that bracket. You don't want to be playing Atlanta in the second round. So as long as there are 2 or even a 3, and they're down there in the bottom half of the Eastern Conference bracket, then I think that mission accomplished there. And yeah, of course, you'd like to have home court, but I think we've seen in the last few years that's not all that it's cracked up to be, especially when you get late into the conference finals and then the finals. I think it's more about how you finish and how you're playing at the time. So I'd rather the Cavs get that number 2 and if they have to play the deciding game in Atlanta or give up home court advantage, I'd rather them do that than go pedal to the metal and wear themselves out trying to chase them for this sort of invisible crown of having the best record in the Eastern Conference. That's nice, but not that big of a deal. So as long as they keep playing the way they do, I think everything will kind of take care of itself, and then we'll see what happens in the playoffs. I think that's really what it's all about, and home court is nice, and as we saw in 2009 and 2010, that's great to be that number one seed and to win 60 games.
Matter.
But yeah, it doesn't mean a whole lot once the rubber hits the road when you hit April and May.
For sure, man. And like you said, not wanting too tough of a first-round matchup. I mean, we got a whole 30 games to play, but if the season ended today, that 4-5 would probably be the toughest of all of them in the East. Washington would have to play Chicago in the first round, and those are two of your better teams there, one of them knocking the other one off there, you know. So
right.
I hear you there for sure. And it's going to be a lot of fun, man. But you mentioned something just there. I'm just afraid that the Cavaliers – of the whole peaking too early thing, because we've seen it before, man. You know, are they getting red hot and then it's too early, or is this just going to – because it's impossible to go, they're not possibly going to carry on like this, are they? But they very well may. They very well may. I mean, Atlanta won 82% of their games in the first half of the season. 41-9. I don't know who saw that coming from the Hawks. I know the Hawks are a decent team, but that's a hell of a first half from those guys.
And that's why I think this Atlanta having this type of season may be the best thing that could happen to the Cavs. Because I think, and as you said it earlier, I don't think the Cavs or the Cavs fans are necessarily afraid of Atlanta. I think there's a respect there, but I don't think it's like, oh my gosh, boy, I'm really worried about that matchup. I don't sense that. The Atlanta may very well beat the Cavs if it ever comes to that, but I don't think this is a matchup that the Cavs or their fans are afraid of. And I think by the Hawks sort of becoming this team that, or at least having the type of record that I think everyone kind of thought the Cavs would have, I think maybe that's, at this point, maybe taking a little pressure off of the Cavs, maybe taking that target off of their back. Maybe that's not the worst thing in the world if the Cavs go into the playoffs as not the big story. Maybe they can fly under the radar a little bit and let Atlanta carry that load. Let Atlanta have the big bullseye on their back. It's the number one that won 60 games and is the big story of the NBA. Let that happen. Let that play out and let the Cavs just take care of business. And when the time comes, they can kind of, you know, take that sort of us against the world mentality. Nobody expects us to win. We're the underdog type of thinking into that series and into any series, really, and just take care of business. So that may not be a bad thing, and it may not be terrible if they don't catch Atlanta. I'm perfectly okay with that.
Perfectly okay. You know what else I'm okay with? I'm okay. I've already got Jeff Gorman coming up in a few minutes, and he's all Browns here today. So you know what? The Cavs allowed me and Jonathan Knight not to have to beat ourselves upside the head.
Thank you, Cavs. Thank you for not letting us, not forcing us to talk about
No, you get out of it. I've got it coming here in just a minute. I mean,
well, right. For me, that's all I'm cared about is myself, honestly, Jerry. And I'll throw you under the bus. You're going to take the bullet for me today. I don't want to deal with this.
I don't blame you, man. I mean, I wish none of us had to deal with it. What did you text me this morning? Can we just wake up in the future and we're just past all this?
Can we not talk about? Well, I like that idea of Browns Free Friday. Let's just take Friday out of it. Just Browns Free. I think, can we just do that? Because I think there's good. Like I said, there's good things going on. I mean, the Cavs winning 12 in a row and riding their ship. And the Indians, we are, less than 2 weeks away from pitchers and catchers. The trucks are about to roll out. This is
rolling
good.
out.
They're good things.
Rolling out 4 hours ago. The truck's packed up.
Oh, it's gone. Okay, it was today. Yeah, I mean,
9 a.m. 9 a.m., JK. Truck got packed up. People took their pictures, and bam. I don't know if it's officially hit the road yet, but yes, the truck is packed as we speak.
Yeah, it's a beautiful day. I mean, there are good things going on, and if the Browns could just get off the damn stage and let us focus on these things, I think everybody in Cleveland will feel better with 14 inches of snow on the ground. This is what you need to get through winter. We need the Browns to go away. Just stop it. Just go away. Leave us alone. We're doing fine without you. Just every time there's something about the Browns, it's bad news, and we're tired of it. We're Browns fatigue.
They did I think they did the Indians a favor, actually, and Danny Salazar this week with the Browns debacles going on and the Cavs being so red hot. That story kind of stayed under a lot of the radar here earlier on this week. I can't lie. I had flashbacks of Jose Mesa in 1997 in my head when the headline started to hit. Not about charges or anything, or I know charges weren't filed, but if you remember, it was in the winter right before spring. Was it New Year's? It was somewhere right near the beginning of the year where it happened. And then, of course, he actually went to trial. But that hung over him. It was a bad start of the season for him, all of that. I said flashbacks to that. I said, man, no matter what happens, you got to think this is the kind of thing that may linger on. We may be going, man, is this still in the head months from now? You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that's the only kind of shadow bad news coming in Cleveland anywhere outside of Berea is that. And I guess, if you want to say, well, it's over, there's not filing charges. Well, okay, that's good. And yeah, I think we're all really tired of hearing about athletes and charges and whether he is or isn't going to be arrested. I think that was a story that we didn't get much of. You're right, it did get overshadowed a little bit, which is good. So maybe we can just kind of close our eyes, whistle past the graveyard, and then okay, moving on. Hopefully that's the end of it, and that was whatever the case was. It's done, and there was no crime committed. Whatever it may be, it's over. It's done. Everybody's okay. Let's move on.
I told somebody just last night, I said, this is one of the times where the Indians getting the shaft from the media worked out in their favor.
It worked out, yeah.
It did.
That's exactly what the PR department is saying. It's like, whew, finally. Nobody gives us any due, and it worked.
But it did, and hopefully that's the only bullet the Indians have to dodge, because a week from now when you and I are talking, that'll be it, man. They'll at least start warming up some gloves and playing some toss, and it'll be time, man. It will be time for them to start playing some baseball.
I'm ready.
People,
God knows I'm ready. I'm ready.
You can't circle the first day. I go, man, people go, look, that's the day spring training starts. I go, no, you got to brace yourself for 2 weeks in the future of that, because for the first couple of weeks, there's not a whole lot coming out of spring training other than, hey, did you see that guy play catch yesterday? Hey, I heard Brantley was playing long toss yesterday. You know, that's about all you can
take whatever we can. I mean, that's the little crap that gets us through the winter. But so we'll take it. Don't get us wrong. But yeah, it only lasts so long. It is a very, very hollow, very insubstantial type of thing. But we'll take it. What it is interesting is now we're less than a month until the first exhibition game, and 2 months from today is opening day. So we're really down to less than 60 days. We're getting there.
2 months from today is opening day, man. That is music to my ears, man. And we'll be, March Madness is at that time, and the Cavs are hopefully continuing to peak. Could be a beautiful start to the spring. Let me ask you as we go, what did you think when you heard, honestly, my first thought when I heard about Victor Martinez was, could you imagine if the Indians had signed Victor Martinez and then this happens, the meltdown that would have occurred. But I'll tell you what, that well, talk about knocking on wood. Maybe that turns out to be hey, well, the Dolans are cheap. Well, maybe that worked out in their favor there. But
and that was exactly my thought. Was, remember, there was that rumor that there was that possibility that they were going to sign him, and thought, whoa, wow, Destiny's wires got crossed there, because that's exactly the kind of thing that we could expect to happen to Cleveland teams. They would have signed him. It would have been this beautiful moment, and then he would have instantly had essentially a season-ending type of injury.
I'm telling you, man, it was amazing. But there's another chink in the armor of Detroit there, as that's going to be, obviously it's not a whole season. It looks like he may just miss training camp or spring training, and then when they clean it out, there's a little bit more damage that may be an extra month added on. So he could miss like 3 months total, but it's more likely to be 6 to 8 weeks. So it'll still set him back the start of the season, and that's another chink there. I truly believe the Central Division is wide open, not just for the Indians, but for every one of these teams, pretty much, maybe except for Minnesota.
Yeah, and that's great. I think Detroit, I don't know if I'm sure for some people they still are just naturally considered the favorite. They probably on paper still have the most talent, but I get the feeling that their window has closed. Certainly for winning a World Series. They may still wind up in the playoffs and winning the division because there's still a lot of talent there. But yeah, they feel like a lot like the Indians of like 2000, 2001. When that window had kind of closed, they were still kind of limping along. They still had some talent, but you knew that they were done. If they were going to win it, they'd have won it by now. And that's when you strike. That's when Kansas City, my gosh, are they going to be able to pick up where they left off? Are the Indians going to finally get over this hump? They've kind of teased us with it these last 2 years. Can they take another giant step forward? We'll see. Yeah, and now you've got, like you said, Minnesota may be still a year or two away, but Chicago always seems
Yes.
to rebound or bounce back quickly. So yeah, I mean, it's going to be wide open, and that's good. I think that's great. I think it's going to be a fun summer, not just for the Indians, but for everybody in the Central Division. I think it's going to be a good race.
How about James Shields? Where do you think he ends up? Because that's a big piece that's still out there to play. I mean, in the division, somewhere else, over in the National League. Where do you think he ends up? I mean, obviously going to end up somewhere different, you think, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I would think. I mean, who knows? And honestly, maybe this Victor Martinez, some of the other things that happened, maybe that changes Detroit's thinking, and they go pedal to the metal for Shields or someone else, or make some kind of move that changes things. I don't know. I mean, ideally, you hope that he does go National League, that he's not something the Indians would have to worry about, but. Yeah, either way, you've got to be prepared for that. I think the Indians can't be basing their optimism on, now Victor Martinez is hurt. Nobody signed this guy. Like, they need to be more solid than that. And I think not to say that they're not. It's just that I think the fans in general need to build their optimism more about the Indians themselves than what's going on around them. And there's plenty of reason for optimism. I think the Indians have, even if they haven't really shaken the world here in this off season, I think they've done enough, and they've made some crafty, like, subtle little moves and decisions that I think will help them once we get into the summer. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. But yeah, I mean, you got to feel good about the Indians, especially now that, like you said, nobody actually had started long toss yet. So this is the most optimistic time of the year.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, and we'll see. I just think it's amazing. We've seen it the last couple years. The new trend with the different bargaining agreement of these star players still not having homes into spring training. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a different. Am I wrong? I mean, did I just not pay attention to this stuff before, or have we always had this? I don't recall this. Where you've got like big name guys.
Is unusual because usually, and if for nothing else, but and this is not to belittle this, but it really is it. When you are able to sign your guys early by Thanksgiving, that's usually when you see the flurry of free agent activity in between Thanksgiving and Christmas. And you really set up your marketing. I mean, it sounds trite, but that really is a big part of this. Is you set up your season ticket sales, you set up how you're going to market this team, how this team's going to be promoted, and how they're going to stand in the community, particularly in smaller markets like Cleveland, where that really is important. What you do in the off season, early in the off season specifically, really kind of sets the tone for how excited people are. So this is very unusual. So wherever he lands, you can be like, oh, well, okay, here's a big burst right before spring training starts, and I guess you can get excited about that. It just changes that dynamic. So yeah, I'm wondering if this is going to be something we're going to see in future years.
I don't know. Something to keep an eye on. JK, hey, we talk baseball, we talk Cavs, we didn't even talk about that other team, man. So I'm with it. It worked.
Good. I'm happy.
Beautiful day.
Thank you.
Beautiful day. Now you can go on in your Browns Free Friday. I'm probably going to get dragged down into the muck here a little bit, but
yeah. Sorry, you had to take the bullet, Jerry.
Go do your thing. Go do your thing. Hey, we got to talk. We got to talk Major League book here pretty soon, JK.
Yeah, we're getting closer. We'll have to give an update. We're getting closer.
Let's do it.
We'll have to circle back and give you a rundown of what's been happening. But yeah,
I want the 411.
We're getting closer. We're getting closer and closer to reality. Each week we get a little bit closer. So that day is coming.
I want the 411. Let's get it. All right, JK. Have a good week. Let's do it next week. Let's talk a little bit about we may have to talk about the Browns, but we'll do our best to have another good, happy, uplifting conversation like we had today.
Indeed. Fair enough.
Take it easy, my man. Thank you very much.
You too, buddy. Take care.
You got it. That's Jonathan Knight, the sports writer extraordinaire. He's with us every Friday here on the Sports Fix, and looking forward to next Friday. And trust me, it was for the best that we didn't go in a different direction with that conversation because JK wasn't having it here today. All right, we'll pick up this conversation a little bit later on next week. I cannot wait. Jeff Gorman, who's going to join us next, will be doing the Indians thing next week. And then, of course, Mike Brandenberry, JK. The conversations have begun in robust fashion final week before spring training becomes official is next week. Let's take a break, get you the news. Final few seconds of hour one ticks away. When we come back after the news, Jeff Gorman from Indians and Browns 101.com. I had to throw in the Indians too because I may try to veer him off the charted destination of this conversation. I hear you, LG. Trust me, you didn't want to hear JK's take on it today because today it was more of a I don't want to talk about it deal. But I hear you. We'll talk a little bit of Browns here. We'll talk some NFL offseason. Second hour, Browns fans, sit tight. We won't ignore you. If you want to wallow in the misery that is another Cleveland Browns offseason, we can do that if you wish. Jeff Gorman from Browns101.com is going to join us here in just a few moments. Eddy Jansen from More Than a Fan Cleveland, Cavaliers beat writer. He joins us as well. Hour two of the Sports Fix. Off, running, and coming your way next after the news.
The Sports Fix, your choice for intelligent talk.
That was wonderful.
Bravo!
I loved that.
Oh, it was great.
Intelligent talk.
Well, it was pretty good.
Well, it wasn't bad.
Well, there were parts of it that weren't very good, though.
It could have been a lot better.
I didn't really like it.
These guys must be on the wrong station.
It was pretty terrible.
It was bad.
It was awful.
It was terrible.
Get him away!
Hey, boo!
Boo!
The Sports Fix.
How to be a great dad in 15 seconds. Bike ride, go fish, walk in the park, phone call, milkshake, play catch, picnic, fly a kite, tell jokes, laugh, talk, read a story, tell a story, bumper car, swing set, bowling, pillow fight, cut loose, stay tight. Whew. Because the smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life. Take time to be a dad today. Call 877-4DAD-411 or visit fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Have you gotten your copy of Cleveland's Finest yet? Highlighting the best moments, players, and media members in Cleveland sports history?
He won it! Milo hit a three-pointer on the side.
In-depth personal interviews with some of the top names in Cleveland sports fill the pages of this incredible book. Cleveland's Finest by Vince McKee is this year's must-have book for every Cleveland sports fan. Available now at Amazon.com. Get your copy today.
Business owners and professionals, do you want to take your business, your product, your team, your event to the next level? You want to advertise right here with the Sports Fix. Our listeners are among the most loyal listeners, terrestrial or internet. The Sports Fix universe is not only the radio show, but tens of thousands of fans on Facebook and Twitter. Email me, Jerry Myers, thesportsfix@AOL.com. That's thesportsfix@AOL.com. And let me help you swing for the fences and hit it out of the park right here on the Sports Fix.
Portions of the Sports Fix brought to you by Harry Buffalo. Harry Buffalo, join the herd.
News break.
I'm Christine Lisi. Here's what's happening. No team hotter in the NBA these days than the Cavaliers, winners of 12 straight, heading into tonight's matchup against the Pacers. The difference in Cleveland's longest winning streak in 5 years has been defense, according to LeBron James.
What's clicking defensively? Defensively, we're very, very good right now. We understand what we want to do, what we want to accomplish every night when we go out on the ball, on the floor. And when you have that type of mind frame and guys know where guys need to be and guys trust the guys behind them, it definitely helps.
LeBron James, Indiana's Paul George, says he's not sure if he'll be able to return this season from a fractured leg, wants to play, but recognizes he's still recovering, hasn't yet run up and down the court in full 5-on-5 action, and has not taken contact. NBA Commissioner Adam Silver told Comcast Sportsnet Bay Area he's open to restructuring the playoff format. Said one proposal they need to look at would have division winners all automatically go into the playoffs and then see the next best 10 teams. NHL Ducks captain Ryan Getzlaf questionable tonight at Washington with a lower body injury.
At Subway, experience the breakthrough taste of new grilled chicken strips. Premium cut all-white meat chicken without artificial preservatives or flavors. They taste better and they are better. Try them on a sweet onion chicken teriyaki or chicken and bacon ranch melt. Subway, eat fresh.
You're listening to the Sports Fix.
Welcome back to the Sports Fix, live across the Sports Fix Radio Network. J-Rocc back with you. Hour 2 kicking off here. Jeff Gorman from Browns and Indians 101.com is going to join us here. We've got Eddy Jansen, Cavaliers beat writer for More Than a Fan, Cleveland.com. He's going to join us here a little bit later on in the second hour of the show as well. And I am glad to have you guys with us as we roll on. Good conversation with Jonathan Knight, the sports writer extraordinaire, earlier on in the first hour. So thanks to him for joining us. If you enjoyed what you heard, don't forget JK's with us each and every Friday live right here on the Sports Fix. Let's keep it going. You can be with us live right now on Facebook and Twitter, facebook.com/The Sports Fix. Tweet with us at The Sports Fix, CLE. Email us, thesportsfix@AOL.com. I'm getting ready to hit up the hotline. Jeff Gorman, writer for Browns101.com. He's with us here today, and we're going to talk a little Browns, Ray Farmer, hot button Haslam, hands-on Haslam, as some people may like to call him. They got other words that can't use on the radio. But regardless, we're going to talk about all of that and the week that was, or maybe, as I said on one of my tweets, the week that always is, it seems, for the Cleveland Browns. Let's go in that direction. I'd love to talk solutions, but, you know, we can solve a lot of problems. We can solve world hunger, but if nobody puts it into effect, it doesn't matter what we come up with. We'll go that direction. You guys keep it going, Facebook and Twitter. Or, of course, leave your message on the hotline, 216-539-7535. I'm on the hotline with Jeff Gorman. Jeff, my friend, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing fantastic, J-Rocc. And, you know, I'd personally like to thank the Cleveland Browns for giving us enough stuff to talk about in the offseason. But let me just say, guys, please slow down. You don't need to cram everything into 1 week.
They felt a little left out. They saw all the stuff. They said, "Man, the Indians got that truck packing thing going on this week, and they got the Cavs they keep winning games. They're making us look bad here, guys. What can we do? Let's make ourselves look bad." No, actually, the Browns didn't do this one. Some other people did it for them, but clearly they put themselves in this mess. And listen, as we start this conversation, you guys, I'm going to say the same thing that Dan Wismar and I said on Monday when this ridiculous week got started, like we said on Wednesday when Jason Lockenfor's story came out, like we said yesterday, every day here as we've had this, is you've got to understand some of these things are most definitely being pushed by an agenda of people whose entire job it is to make the Browns look as bad. Now, what I mean by this is the Browns do a damn good job by themselves, but what I mean is Joe Banner and Mike Lombardi have their friends in the media. Jason Lockenfor is public enemy number one. So is Pro Football Talk and those guys over there and the NBC Sports crew. So when you get information from those sources, you pretty much know where they're coming from. Now, it doesn't mean that the stuff's not true, but it's in Joe Banner and Mike Lombardi's best interest for the Browns to look as humanly dysfunctional, just as bad as possible, just to turn the knife just a little bit. But hey, trust me, this is not all smoke and mirrors. This is not all stuff invented by bad media people who just hate the city of Cleveland and those bad Browns organizations over the years. No. That is not what this is. So, but I do want to say that because you can't sit there and just go, oh, look at all 57 things here that they said about the Browns. Some of that stuff is what it is, but the other, it's not, and we know that. And like I said, Jeff, I'd love for you and I to start right there and go, the hell with the stories. How do we fix it? But it doesn't matter how you fix it. It doesn't matter how I fix it. It doesn't matter. First off, do they even want it to be fixed? Because they live in a land that appears to be very different from what everybody else sees when you're talking about the Cleveland Browns. And when I say they, I mean Jimmy Haslam and Alex Shiner and Ray Farmer at the top of the Browns.
That's right. They're in their own insular world, which Haslam literally owns, and the rest of us, as big as Browns fans as we are, as much as we love the Browns and as those of us who cover the Browns, you know, we're really on the outside looking in, and it's almost like being on a different planet. The atmosphere is different, and on that planet, everything seems like it makes sense. They can breathe on that planet, but apparently some people found this week that they couldn't breathe on that planet, and they had to leave. And, you know, it's interesting. You're talking about these people who are deliberately trying to make the Browns look bad, I have to give them an A+, because they're really doing a fantastic job. But, of course, there's definitely a lot of stake to go along with the sizzle because, of course, you can't publish things that are not true. And I didn't hear anybody jumping up from anywhere in the Browns organization saying, well, that's not true. Everything's fine. You know, everything just came out, and there it is.
And you know what? You can take what you just said, line it up all the way back to the beginning of the offseason with the first reports about text messages way before Shanahan even got out of his contract, and the lack of denials, when the Browns, and because I'm in the media, like whenever they send out something, I'm in the group that gets it first. So like, I know when they want to send you a press release, they send it. When they want to deny something, they'll deny it within an hour of a story coming out. And so the lack of anything, I mean, to be honest, starting with the text messaging thing, the minute the Browns didn't come out and say anything other than we're participating with the investigation and we can't really comment anymore, that I knew right then and there somebody sent some text messages, besides the fact that we were told about it way before the story broke. But I knew right then and there that, well, clearly you can't add lying to the list of things that the NFL is going to punish you for, so you can't say we didn't do it because you already know for a fact you did. Point to the day Kyle Shanahan left. When we were talking on the show, I said, if you don't think that Kyle Shanahan had a whole bunch of leverage over the Browns, you don't know how business works, because he just got out of a 3-year contract with no penalty in less than 1 year after he signed the contract in a league that never just allows people to move on to the next team without. How many times do you hear about a team having to send a draft pick over for compensation if they want to sign somebody that's already under contract? I knew right then and there when they threw Logan's under the bus in the same press release where they reminded you how good Kyle Shanahan did as he chose to leave the Browns. That's when I knew right then and there that he had them up and over a barrel. Now, none of us knew that he had him over a 32-point barrel where he had 32, one for every NFL team, man. He had a different reason why the Browns needed to let him out of his contract. I mean, do we need to go on? We've only just begun to scratch the surface. They don't deny. Matter of fact, the opposite. They have clearly proven that these things did happen. So start from there, my man. I don't even know, again, how you solve problems that don't want to be solved. How, as you said, living in that insular world, how do you fix things that people don't believe need to be fixed? I mean, I don't know where. That's the thing, is I don't know where to tell Browns fans to even go, because nobody wants to just walk up and throw their hands. If they did, they'd have done it a long time ago. So what do you tell a Brown? Oh, what do? Do you put your head in the sand and say, no, guys, you can't be negative. Everything's going to be great with these guys. I mean, that's what the Browns want you to do as they raise your ticket prices 30% in the middle. That is the ultimate act of the hubris, Jeff. We haven't even, you and I, what did we list? Text messaging. We listed the Shanahan thing. We haven't even gotten into all the mess that the Browns have gotten themselves involved with here, and they've raised ticket. I mean, already there's a reason to complain about that. But how in the hell do you go through all of this and in the middle of it send out a letter saying, hey, by the way, pay us 30% more for your tickets next season? You know, that to me was the ultimate act of hubris from this team, and that may be the combination that I think, for the first time in a long time, reverses that trend and sees the Browns truly start to actually feel, again, some bite back from the fan base. Because until the fans do it, until you treat the Browns like you treat the Indians, I can't even say the Cavs, because they even went to more Cavs games during the last 3 years than they did Indians games. But until you hold the Haslams to the same expression that you hold the Dolans in that group speak, then you're never going to get anything different. The Indians only went and signed Nick Swisher and Michael Bourne because they knew they were on the verge of dropping from 10,000 fans a game to 5,000 fans a game on those bad nights. And they knew that it was about to really hit a cliff that they were going to fall off of. People that think the Browns are bulletproof are nuts. I believe that this latest deal is a slap in the face enough that they will finally start to see that fan base say, you know what, the hell with you. The Cavs are about to win a championship. The Indians may be giving us 3 good seasons in a row here. What are we going to monkey around with this garbage for? Now, it's different. We're not talking about messing with bad teams. We're talking about this garbage. Why even mess with it? And I believe the Browns fan base is finally going to reach that point.
Right. There's a certain element of hopelessness that comes into the equation when you realize that the problem is the owner. Because you can't change the owner. You can't fire the owner. We're stuck with the owner. So the question becomes, is this team ever going to succeed with this guy as the owner? And the answer is it would have to be almost a big accident. And you almost look at this past season where they won 7 games. It almost seems like it was an accident. And I guess that almost justified in the Browns' minds raising the ticket prices. Hey, we went from 4 wins to 7 wins. But you'd have to be blind to not see that this team is actually going backwards instead of forwards, despite winning 3 more games than last year.
Right. No, I'm with you, man. It's almost like they raised the ticket increase was the same percentage as the victory increase. Oh, well, we're up 30% here, so let's raise them up as well. And just all of it. So not to mention the fact that we hadn't even touched all of the other issues and problems that have come out, and it's disheartening. This is the point that where we're at in this conversation is just where the average Browns fan is right now, because they love this team and and listen, man, Indians fans get mad at Browns fans and all around the board. They all start getting mad at each other, but they're all the same, man. I mean, the Indians did a lot of damage to their own fan base during a bad time period a few years back, and it's not been able to recover from it yet. The Browns were so close to that. I don't know if you heard Mike Brandenberg and I talking yesterday, but the Browns were getting to that point. If you look in Jonathan Knight's Browns Bible, he's got the average attendance in each year, and one day I pulled it up and was doing a little survey of my own, and I mean, you could see, if you put together a chart, you could see it trending downward, but everybody said the Browns are bulletproof. And I said, man, why are people ignoring this? Jimmy Haslam gave him a shot in the arm and jolted it right back up to where last season, because of the Manziel hype and all of the hype train that was built last season, Browns just came off of their strongest season at the box office in forever. Merchandise, all of that stuff. Browns just came off a very strong season, and here's the disconnect is they're looking at that moving forward. I told you, there's Browns fans looking at this giant mess and going, it's going to get really bad next year. And the Browns' biggest concern is, man, we really left some money on the table with Manziel. Like last season, that was a big rift, was the whole Manziel issue, and I'll tell you what, that quote that I keep going back to, I was told that in the middle of the season, while the Browns are competing for playoffs, a top business executive of the Browns said that he was upset internally about how much money the Browns had left on the table with not having Johnny Manziel out there from week 1, between ticket sales and jersey sales and all of that stuff. And that's that disconnect again, and fans feel slapped in the face because they're like, okay, we put up with your garbage forever for you to accidentally stumble into something good, and you couldn't just let well enough be. You had to mess this up too, and now things look worse on the surface than they were before you started accidentally making them better.
Right, and that kind of mentality that you just mentioned, it just displays, just a lack of understanding of football and how it works. And of course, when you come off of the Super Bowl and the conference championships, you see these really great organizations, teams that make it this far year after year, and they've got the system together, they've got the guys picking the players, they've got the solid coach who's been there for a very long time, and this is how a system's supposed to be. You have an owner who gets out of the way, you have a general manager who drafts well, who turns over the rocks and finds the hidden gems, and then you have the coach who's solid. He's got assistant coaches who are loyal to him. All this stuff has to be in place. You can monkey around and win 4 games, you can monkey around and win 7 games, but you can't accidentally stumble into the Super Bowl. You've got to really have a well-oiled machine and a structure that's working together for at least 5 years or so. And we never even have the same people together for 3 years.
I know. I understand, man. And again, I go back to what you said earlier. I kind of said the same thing all week. When the problem starts at the top, that is the unfixable problem. Even if it's all going to roll downhill. Ray Farmer, as most people are under the belief that Ray Farmer, whether you want to use the hardcore, you say he's a yes man, or whether you say he's insulating Jimmy Haslam and taking the shots for him, which is really the fair way to put it. But at the end of the day, you're taking those bullets. Guess what? Even though the boss is asking you to take those bullets, every one of them is making you bleed. Every one of them is putting you closer and closer to dying, and you will get run over by the Jimmy Haslam. Like Jimmy Haslam will replace one insulating general manager with the next. So he's not going to show up and say, hey, Jimmy Haslam hasn't been doing a good job, so Jimmy Haslam no longer is the owner of the Browns. That will never happen until the day he sells the team. That doesn't happen. So Ray Farmer can think that he's protecting his own job, I think. And it's easy for me to say, hey, speak up to your boss. But to me, in a position where you're a general manager of any kind of a sports franchise, you can be a yes man, but you're only going to be there as long as you're there. When they decide you're gone, you're gone. You give yourself no control over your own job. At least when you stay true to yourself, and I call me stubborn, I've always stayed true to myself, and sometimes it gets me in trouble. Sometimes they say you just go along to get along, but I don't know that I can necessarily be that guy. Why not say, hey, I know that you're not going to like what I'm about to say, but I don't think this is a good idea, and it's what you pay me to do is to tell you my thoughts. And if you still want me to do it, you still want me to draft this guy, if you still want me to sign this guy, I will do it with a smile on my face because you asked me to do it. But I have to tell you that this is going to be a bad decision for your business. Without that, then you're just a yes man. And so that's my problem, is that even though he thinks he's protecting his own job and doing what his boss wants, at the end of the day, he will replace you with the next person to do it. And I fear that we end up losing a good head coach. I like Mike Pettin, and he is going to get run over by this whole train as well. He has no anything to stand on other than the fact that the Browns somehow found a way to win 7 games last year. Other than that, he's got no cachet, as John McMullen says, nothing to bank on. He can't stand up to the owner. The general manager can't stand up to the owner. Again, it circles all the way back around.
Right, and the thing is, you can be a yes man, or you can be the guy who stands up and tells your boss exactly what you think, but ultimately, it's all going to come down to winning. And, when you win, whatever strategy you decide to do, that's what works. And that's what, creates, an atmosphere that people want to be in. And that's when you start moving forward. Now, when you start getting situations like, think about Kyle Shanahan. How long do you think it took him to type up or write up 32 reasons why he wanted to get out of retirement? That must have taken him a really long time. And you know what? I think he probably could have kept going further if he had a little more time to think about it. And then you have the word toxic being thrown around. There's a toxic atmosphere. Nobody trusts anybody. That is the kind of situation that free agents and other coaches who are worth a darn, they don't want to come here. So the question is, going into the future, what kind of weapons from a coaching and a playing standpoint is Mike Pettin going to even have to go with when people are not going to want to come to Cleveland? Just reading what people would read this week, you would have to have your head examined to choose to come to Cleveland. The only reason you would want to be associated with the Browns is if you're like us and you were born here.
Jeff, let me kind of jump in and piggyback off of where you went there. That last thing you said is, why would somebody... No, we're past that point. We keep talking about since 1999. All of us, we throw that phrase out there. I don't want to do that right now. Let's break this down just to Jimmy Haslam's tenure as the owner of the Browns. Now, he has not. And by the way, even though it's only been a couple of years, how crazy does the sentence sound that this is the first offseason in Jimmy Haslam's tenure that he hasn't fired and hired a head coach? That sounds nuts just to begin there. I mean, hey, he fired Shermer, he hired Chud, he fired Chud, he hired Pettin. So here we go again. But let's just look at Jimmy Haslam, his first coaching search. Look at he went with Chud as the coach, but look at the candidates. Look at who he ended up getting as assistant coaches. Very respected, whether you like what they did or not, respected veteran guys. Ray Horton, Norv Turner. Look at the guys that came in and interviewed. Is all I'm saying is look at Jimmy Haslam's first coaching search. Look at Jimmy Haslam's second coaching search. The offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator candidates changed to a much different level of guys. Obviously, we talked about the head coaching candidates drying up. Now, come back to season 3. The offensive coordinator / quarterback coach candidates were all guys who had never done it before and needed to get an opportunity to do it, whether it was their first job or whether it was their first coordinator job or whatever it is. Just look at the candidates. And I don't mean who was chosen. Just look from Jimmy Haslam's first coaching searches until now, the group of people who have come in to interview, and you can literally see it erode from solid, been around the league, veteran cats who know what they're doing to guys who have to get an opportunity. And that doesn't mean that every once in a while those guys don't work out. They do. Every once in a while you find a good young guy. Point is just look at the group of candidates that have come in and how it's winnowed itself into a certain small category in less than 3 years. As you said, multiply that by play. Now, players, it's a bit differently because players, a lot of them, it's about the money more than it is about what team pays them per se. Some teams, obviously some players have preferences, but that's different because a lot of millions and millions of dollars can make me go play for a team that I wouldn't play for. Coaching for a team is different because you get all the blame. Your career can literally be affected by the wrong coaching job. There's a little difference than taking a 2-year contract with the Browns as a player is a way different scenario than taking one as a coach, as you know. But look at the different groupings there of those and that'll just show you the way the NFL has changed the way they view it, Cleveland. I'm not talking about 99, you guys. I'm talking about the last 3 seasons. Everybody wanted to work for Jimmy Haslam in his first coaching search. Look at now how it has gotten in the latest assistant coaching search. And right there, answers all the questions to me about how the league views Cleveland. We're not talking about 15 years. We're talking about 3.
Right, and again, you have that contrast with what we just saw in the Super Bowl. The Patriots offensive coordinator, Josh McDaniels. He's been a head coach before. He's probably going to succeed Bill Belichick someday. And then, of course, after the Super Bowl, you have Dan Quinn, the defensive coordinator of the Seattle Seahawks,
who the Browns wouldn't wait
for. Coaching job.
Browns wouldn't wait for him, by the way. Remember that, Jeff? Browns wouldn't wait for him a couple years ago. They could have just waited 2-3 weeks for Seattle to finish their run, and he was interested in the job, and they were interested in him. But Jimmy Haslam, Hotspur Haslam, man, he had to get himself a head coach. He didn't want to wait a couple of weeks and let more candidates get out of his way. Meanwhile, I'm going to be very interested to see if Dan Quinn turns out to be a good NFL. Maybe he won't. I mean, a lot of defensive coordinators don't turn out to be good head coaches, but that again speaks to that hot button, that spur of the moment impatience. Instead of waiting a couple of weeks, there you go.
Right, and so you have that real championship level of offensive and defensive coordinators, but when you have the situation where the Browns have, it's getting to be almost like an entry level. So you don't want to be the entry levels where people are getting into the NFL or getting into this spot in the NFL through you. You really want to have your choice of people who have been there before, because it's very rare that a team's going to go very far in the playoffs with a bunch of guys who are just really learning their job.
I'll tell you, man, I mean, I saw the listing yesterday. If you look at it, and it's not hard for us to come off the top of your head, look at the 7 first-round picks that the Browns have had since Jimmy Haslam took over the team. And you look, the best of all of them is Barkevious Mingo. And then it's downhill from there when you look at multiple years of multiple first-round picks there, the way they had it, man. And, I mean, again, you can continue going there, but you look at a team, and I think back just a year ago even, the position that they were in with the assets, with everything, and then where they sit now. And you come out of that season and you're thinking, okay, you build, because that's what you do. It doesn't have to be perfect. Okay, we struggled at the end. We went 7-9. Build on it. Get better. But instead of doing that, here the Browns find themselves freaking dealing with the same garbage and starting over in a lot of different ways and worse off than before. Why couldn't you just build upon the success you have instead of causing your own problems and just making things a million times worse for yourself? Because that's what gets Browns fans the most. It's not the things that go wrong that you can't control. It's not the winning and losing, which is not in your control either as a fan or even necessarily as an individual player. It's a team thing. But watching you do it to yourself and watching these things, again, I point to the hundreds of Browns fans on our small level who have reached out to us and said the thing that kicked them in the gut the most this season was the way they attacked things while they were in position to give the fans a successful season. It blew Browns fans' minds that the Browns could be monkeying around with accidental success. And maybe that's it. Maybe because the success was accidental, because the planned success had a number 2 on the back of his jersey. Maybe because the success was accidental, they said, well, imagine how much better things would be if the real Lamborghini was down there on the field. Hey, if we're doing this good with that broken down jalopy down there, imagine how good we'd be with that Maserati we just bought. Why aren't we driving the Maserati? Oh, because it was a Katrina Maserati. It's rotted out from the inside. We didn't know that. But anyway, you know what I mean, those Katrina cars that got washed out in the flood, and then people bring them up north and they sell them, and you think, wow, I just got a $10,000 car for $500. Next thing you know, you're Fred Flintstone and your feet fall through the floor panels, and you're you know what I mean? That's what the Browns turned into, man. We're a Katrina car, brother.
And that's the thing that you mentioned. It's not like the Browns haven't had draft picks. They've had more than their share of draft picks. They're going to have them again this year, and it's going to be interesting to see if there's any kind of a change of philosophy on Ray Farmer's part as far as who you draft, as far as not just talent, but work ethic. And, there are problems with Justin Gilbert, and there are problems with Johnny Manziel, of course, both of your first-round picks. And, I'm not saying you have to go out and find people who are choir boys who are just really going to be super squeaky clean, but you have guys who are really their lifestyle is getting in the way of their own talent. And it's hard enough just to find good talent without that talent sabotaging itself. So while they try to scrape those two up and try to get them back in order, it's going to be interesting to see if who the Browns draft, not just from what position or how good this guy is, but are we pretty sure there's not going to be any character concerns that this guy is going to show up at practice and just do the best he can? Because as you talk about, well, how can we solve this? Is there any way to solve this? The ironic thing is, this team still, despite all this garbage, has the potential to do something. Because, I think Mike Pettin definitely has the potential to be a pretty good coach. I haven't really seen anything bad from him so far. You've got basically 3 all-pro offensive linemen with Thomas and Bitonio and Nash, and obviously there's other areas. You've got 3 Pro Bowlers in the secondary. How many teams can say that with Whitner and Hayden and Tashawn Gibson? I mean, you've got a couple of areas on this team that are important areas. Some would argue the 2 most important areas, the offensive line and the defensive secondary, that are real big strengths, some of the best in the league. And you have to ask yourself, if the rest of the team can kind of come together, it's not like this is a 2-14 team and everything needs to be blown up. There's a chance that if people can just stop screwing up and just get out of their own way, that you could build this team into something.
See, Jeff, what you just said is why for the frustration. It's why we're having this conversation that I don't like to have. As you guys know, we avoid doing this as much as possible because of what you just said. It does not have to be this way. You have talent at several positions. You have draft picks. You have a ton of cap room here to spend again. There's no reason that things shouldn't continue to grow. And to circle it around to where we started and talking about where the problem comes in, how do you fix a problem? Like I say, when you look at the getting a survey and spending $100,000 and some to have it done, and to then completely ignore the results of it because you don't like the way it comes up. I'm going to go, Jeff will understand this. I'll use a wrestling company as an example. There's one big one now, WWE. There used to be two big ones, both as big as WWE is. WCW, it was owned by Ted Turner. It had 30, 40 years in the business and all of this. It should have never went away. In 1 year, it grossed hundreds of millions of dollars. There were big companies trying to buy it. They said, we're not for sale. They put out a bunch of customer surveys when business started to get rough, and they spent millions of dollars on customer surveys, and then they got them back, and they didn't like the answers. So they literally said, well, these people don't know what they're talking about. Mind you, they surveyed their own fan base. They said, well, these people don't know what they're talking about because we don't agree with any of this. So they threw away millions of dollars worth of surveys, and a company that had made literally hundreds of millions of dollars in the year 2000 lost $60 million the very next year and was out of business within 18 months after they threw away millions of dollars worth of surveys that said, hey, if you do this and do this and do this, we would be much happier with your product. It reminds me so much. But look at that. You're talking about a company that at one point turned down $500 million in 2000. Said, no, that's not enough money to buy our company. They were out of business 18 months later. And a big part of it is ignoring the thing. You do this research for a reason. And I look back at that. It doesn't matter if Ray Farmer is a genius. It doesn't matter if you've got the best scouting staff in the world. When your scouting staff brings you a report and you sit down and you look at the list and then you throw it out the window because a homeless guy stopped you on your way to the draft and said, and I'm joking, but when one person can come in and go, I don't care what that list says, here's what I want you to do, then what does it matter how good the people are that work for you? What does it matter if you have the best employees in the world if you don't care unless what they tell you is what you want to hear?
Right, and if you realize that the only way that this can change is if that there's some kind of a fundamental shift in philosophy. And as uncomfortable and as damning as it was to read that report from La Canfora saying that, it's complete dysfunction. Everyone's trying to do each other's jobs. There's no structure. There's no organization. Everyone's tripping all over themselves. The fact that maybe the only way that this can be solved is the fact that all of this was dragged out into the open so that people can say, look, this is what's happening. This is really, really bad. Things need to change. The organization and the structure needs to be changed. And if that actually leads to Jimmy Haslam saying, well, this is very embarrassing. This is right. We need to fix this. But the question is, will he come to that realization? It's like he needs to either have a come to Jesus moment or a 1984 Macintosh, the woman throwing the hammer through the glass, through the television screen moment. Something has to break through into the atmosphere of that other planet to help him realize that it is actually hard to breathe on this planet.
Let me ask you your thoughts as we wrap this up, Jeff. And I think this is going to be something for all of you guys that listen to pay attention to 4 and 5 months from now. I firmly believe, and I've had a few people nudge me as well that I'm going in the right direction with this from Berea, but I firmly believe no matter what you're being told, no matter what you may think about what the Browns are going to do, yes, they are going to bring in some quarterbacks. Yes, there'll be a veteran, maybe 2 in there. Maybe it'll be Brian Hoyer if he decides to. Why in the world he would come back to this? I don't have the slightest clue. He should tell the Browns, thanks, but no thanks, and I'm going to go play somewhere else. But regardless of that, somebody's going to come here and play. But I'm telling you, what do you think, Jeff? Every bit of me screams public image rehab. They are totally believing that they can come back and that Johnny Manziel is going to end up being exactly what they drafted next. I'm not talking about in the future. I'm talking about he's going to be the guy that they want to win the job this year in this training camp. I don't care what they tell you publicly. Clearly you see that they're not the most genuine people in the world with what they say publicly. But I'm telling you, from hiring the coaches that worked with him before and people that have said, hey, I can maneuver around the roster with the talent that I've got, and the fact that of every direction that they seem to be going, this strikes me as a, hey, Johnny, let's sit down and figure this out. Here, you go get yourself help, and then we'll help you with the coaching, and we'll build you up, and let's fix all this. I believe that the Browns in their hubris believe that Johnny Manziel is still every bit the quarterback that he was when they, or at least one person on the Browns believes that, I should say, and my gut tells me, and this will scream of things come this training camp if it's right, but I believe that they still hope to salvage Manziel for this upcoming season, not just for some time in the future. I still believe that they want him to be the starting quarterback come July.
You know what, J-Rocc? I agree. I would not be surprised if that was the case, because as bad as all this is, really the only person who has left the organization have been Loggins and Shanahan. Of course, it seems like Gordon Cooter should be on the way out, but basically everybody else with all these problems, well, maybe they can be reclaimed. Maybe they can, reach their potential, and especially when you're talking about Gilbert and most importantly Manziel, they're going to give them all the time that they need to eventually get to where they need to go, because if Manziel does turn the corner and he does become this great quarterback, then Farmer's a genius, then Haslam's a genius. So they're invested in making sure that decision was correct. I mean, we can talk about, hey, we want to go out there and try to get Marcus Mariota. Everybody else wants to get him. There's no guarantee that you're going to go out and be able to draft him. So you might end up being, well, we got to run with Johnny, and it'll be like, well, you know what? We knew that he was great. He had some maturity issues. He had this, problem that he had to go to rehab for. But, once that was all cleared up, yeah, he ended up making it to the top, and we knew it. We knew he was going to be that good. So they have that in their mind that they can get to that spot where they can, get over these bumps and these hiccups, and then there are talents that they thought was going to be that talent is going to get to that level, and then that'll make them look good. It'll make them vindicate.
Telling you, man, hubris. It's the be all end all in sports. Watch. I mean, I'm telling you. I think the scary thing though is if you're convincing yourself that against reality. And again, I point to the fact that you had an entire coaching staff unanimously say this is the guy and this is not the guy, and the people that have the purse string said, I don't care. That's the guy. That is what you can't fix, and the Browns have to figure out how to fix the unfixable, because as long as the veto vote is available, then it doesn't, again, I go back to it doesn't matter how good the people you are. Hey, I love talking to you, Jeff. If I brought you on every Tuesday and talked from beginning to end and never let you talk, what would be the point of me having you on the show? So I could say that you're part of the show. You never actually speak. You know what I mean? And every time you do speak, I go, well, Jeff, I disagree. Thanks for your opinion, but I completely disagree. What the hell's the point of me having you here,
I might as well be a sock puppet.
Yes, and guess what? The Browns have an entire Berea building full of sock puppets, apparently, man. I'm just saying, man,
Yes.
I like sock puppets. The kids and I like to build them, but I don't want them running my business. Jeff Gorman, Browns101.com, my man, with us every Friday. And every Tuesday, he's from Indians101.com, talking baseball. It's cool because it's the same guy, but he puts on his tribe hat and one of those Groucho Marx glasses with the mustache and nose. Different guy. Jeff Gorman on Tuesday. Guess what we don't have to talk about? This. Guess what we do get to talk about? Spring training, baby, and some Indian stuff. Yeah, all right. So take a deep breath. It's over. I'm not going to say the worst is over because there's 6 more months of this garbage to go. Who knows where the Browns are going to go, but it's over for today.
For now, yes.
For now.
All right. We made it through.
I
just
still,
like getting
I can't
a shot,
lie.
It'll just going to pinch for a little bit, and then it's over.
As you said that, I'm looking around the corner to see what's waiting for us. But who knows, man? Another day, another story. We'll see, bro.
Right.
But again, just kind of commiserating with you guys out there. I know a lot of fans listening to this say, well, we're with you, and none of us from you to us, has any clue how to fix it. We all know how we would fix it, but none of us have a chance in the world of having any opinion that matters. So all we can do is talk ourselves blue in the face with these cats, man. Jeff Gorman, have a great weekend. Enjoy some more of those red-hot Cavaliers. They've got a couple of games this weekend to warm things up till we get to spring training.
I certainly will. It'll be great. You have a good weekend too, my man.
You too. Jeff Gorman, you guys check him out at Jeff D. Gorman or at Browns_101 on Twitter, Browns101.com. We're going to take a break. When we come back, Eddy Jansen, More Than a Fan, Cleveland Cavaliers beat writer, joins us next. See, we're done. It's been ripped off like a Band-Aid. Now we're going to bring it back around, full circle here, and we're going to do it Cavaliers style. Eddy Jansen, More Than a Fan, Cleveland joins us. Guys, if you're trying to call, sit tight. I'll open up the phone lines one more time at the end of the show. When we come back, Eddy Jansen, More Than a Fan, Cleveland Cavaliers beat writer, joins us, talking some Cavs. We'll look at the Pacers and the Lakers and more. Peak Cavs? Hopefully not, but boy, I hope this is what they look like at their peak. We'll talk about it with Eddy coming up next. Good vibes, good vibrations, talking Cavs hoops next on The Fix.
And now, a very special announcement from the Sports Fix.
Black bears weigh between 200 and 500 pounds. Brown bears weigh between 300 and over 1,000 pounds. Black bears run away from you. Brown bears run at you. When attacked by a bear, simply lie still on the ground and cover your face and head with your hands. When the bear has finished batting you around and mauling you, contact the U.S. Forest Service.
And that was a message from the Sports Fix.
Hey guys, before we go to the break, I want to talk to you a little bit again about our good friends at Harry Buffalo North Olmsted, the UFC, the Ultimate Fighting Championships, some of the hottest fights in the world today. Each and every one of their huge events, Harry Buffalo is one of the few places in Northeast Ohio you can go there and watch each and every UFC fight at the Harry Buffalo. And let me tell you, I've been there. The people are out the door. They are to the rafters. It is one of the craziest environments for some UFC fights. Wing Mondays, they've got great deals on wings and drinks, and every day of the week there's a different special, a different deal. And don't forget the Bison Burger, the unbelievable. It is the combination of a fantastic burger and eating healthy combined into one unbelievable sandwich. You have got to get a Bison Burger while you're there. So whatever you're looking for, whatever day of the week, Monday through Friday, Saturday, Sundays, there's something for you at the Harry Buffalo North Olmsted, just outside Great Northern Mall. Check them out today. Harry Buffalo, join the herd.
It's the Sports Fix. We'll be right back.
Fantasy sports lovers, you put so much time, hard work, and effort into playing week to week that it quickly stops being a fantasy and starts getting real. Real time spent making real decisions, creating real victory.
I'm the greatest man in the world!
And when the smoke clears, you want to show off those victories with a real prize.
I mean, a really real prize.
Nobody does that like Fantasy Jocks. The crew over at Fantasy Jocks have beautiful, high-quality, and heavy-duty championship belts, rings, trophies, and so much more for all your fantasy sports needs.
The trophy's 12 feet high, and it is glorious!
Football, baseball, hoops, you name it, they have it. Plus, they have awesome draft kits and party supplies to make all your preseason activities the envy of everyone. If your league needs a ring, belt, or trophy, or you want to upgrade what you already have, there's literally only one place to go. If you're going to be a fantasy jock, do it right.
It's mine, the most magnificent belt ever created, and it's mine.
With America's fantasy sports superstore, fantasyjocks.com.
What's your fantasy?
Football season is party season at Harry Buffalo North Olmsted. Everyone wins at Harry Buffalo. Every Saturday is Coors Light College Football Saturday with $6 pitchers, 4 bottles for $10, and the Buckeyes in full HD. Football season is most definitely party season, and your headquarters is Harry Buffalo North Olmsted all winter long. Harry Buffalo, join the herd.
Hi, this is Dean Chenoweth, head coach of Cleveland's Lake Erie Monsters, and you're listening to the Sports Fix.
Welcome back to the Sports Fix Live. Yeah, I know. Usually you guys hear that music. It's like, last bell of the day here, man. We're getting ready to wrap it, but we're not. We've got another segment to go. My man, Eddy Jansen from More Than a Fan, Cleveland Cavaliers beat writer, joins us here every week talking Cavs. We started the show talking. I told you guys, I insulated us from the Browns today. We started talking Browns, or Cavs. They got it. They're in my head now. Thanks, Jeff Gorman. Started talking Cavs, ended talking Cavs, slipped in a tiny bit of those other guys here in the middle, but we're going to wrap it up nice here. We got Eddy Jansen joining us. What a good one last night. Couple of more opportunities for them to potentially continue this Dirty Dozen winning streak here, and we'll talk about all of that and more with Eddy, so you guys keep it rolling. Facebook and Twitter, facebook.com/thesportsfix. Tweet with us at thesportsfix, CLE. Email us, thesportsfix@AOL.com. And, of course, throughout the weekend, for those of you guys listening on delay, 216-539-7535. 216-539-7535. Hit us up with your takes on the Cavaliers. Hot ones, if they're not so hot, that's okay too. But hit us up with your hot takes on the hotline. Speaking of the hotline, I'm going back to it right now. My man Eddy Jansen from More Than a Fan, Cleveland, and he's here every week talking Cavs as he is right now. Eddy, how you doing today?
Life is good, Jerry. Life is good. And the first three quarters of last night were perhaps the most entertaining Cavaliers game I've seen all season long. So life is good, Jerry. Life is good.
All season long. Let's just back it up a couple of years. May have been the most entertaining game the Cavs have played in at least a half a decade, perhaps, man. And you're right, though. Last night, we talked about it at the beginning of the show. Just an unbelievable performance. And who it came against was really the thing, was that you've got a top squad, a top Western Conference squad, a team with superstars, a team with some of the top players in the NBA, and more important to me than even all of that, a team that we faced at the very beginning of this streak when the Cavs were just getting themselves grouping together here. They had just made the trades and LeBron came back. You circle back, the defensive effort so much different, so much more intense against the Clips than it was in that 126-121 victory back a couple weeks back. Really big test there early on, and to see them continue to just get nastier and nastier defensively. I'm telling you, it's the closest the comparison that I can make. In the last few games, they've reminded me of those Heat teams defensively the last few years, the way they just attack and smother the passing lanes and just truly take over games with their defense now.
Yeah, and Jerry, when you look at the Clippers and you put them under the microscope, they are in all regards a top 5 offensive team in the NBA. And going into the fourth quarter with a 32-point lead and holding the Clippers to just, I think it was 39% from the field for the first three quarters when the starters, were actually in the game, because all the starters for both teams came out in the fourth. But yeah, defensively, they brought something different last night. It's not that they didn't have it at all prior to that, but as you mentioned, that nastiness, that aggressiveness, whatever ferocity that the Clippers tried to bring to the game with their 5 technical fouls, I think that the Cavs were able to channel that in their own way into something positive because of the veterans that they have on the floor, and just the even-keeledness in which they played with really helped them through those testy times against the Clippers. And really, the Cavs have been tested by testy teams twice now, because if you remember the Thunder game, Westbrook and Durant were really throwing it around too. So, the Cavaliers definitely battle-tested, and defensively, I think they've taken it another step forward in the right direction, and then really they are firing on all cylinders, both offensively and defensively.
No doubt about it, my man. We were talking about it at the beginning of the show. Something else I brought up when you weren't with me, before we go into fresh arms of this conversation, I want you being with me on this and let me know if you agree, disagree, whatnot. First person today, even though it's, Kevin Love, all of that we can get into, I had to go off and give some kudos, not just for last night, but in general, since he arrived here to Cleveland. to J.R. Smith because it was so easy. And I was right there with other people. I was familiar with his career, not just recent, but all the things and the monkeying around. And some things I like, some things I think people take too seriously. The whole shoestring thing, I kind of dug that. But anyways, a lot of issues, attitude. Everybody wondered, well, what? And I remember you and I talked, and it was like, well, whatever the Cavs get good out of J.R. Smith is kind of a bonus because Shumpert was the defensive piece. The draft pick was needed to make the trade for Mozgov. So we all looked at J.R. Smith as hopefully he doesn't bring a bad attitude here, doesn't make things worse, and whatever we get, we'll be happy with it. He has not only come in here and played well, not only shot the ball much better, I think, than even people anticipated. We joked about him shooting it from all over, but he's played well. He's played whatever the Cavs have asked him to do. He's played within that. He has played defense, which he always had the ability to play when he wanted to play very good defense. It was just an attitude thing. I can do nothing but give kudos early on for the way J.R. Smith has adapted to the Cavs early. Maybe he's just like, hey, we were in the middle of a Hell 7 circle over there in New York, and now we got a second chance on our season, and we're just happy to be in Cleveland. But whatever it is, I think as quick as we were to say, hey, what's up with getting J.R. Smith, I want to be the first one to go, hey, kudos. J.R. Smith has been the man since he came to Cleveland within the roles that the Cavs have asked him to play.
And Jerry, he is deserving of every kudo in which you are going to give him, and he deserves a lot because he really has came in as a veteran and fit the role ideally that David Griffin and David Blatt had foreseen for the Cavs at the shooting guard position. They wanted a shooter at the two-guard position. That's why they probably had to give up on Dion Waiters because he's more of a dribble driver, more of a guy that wants to go to the rim. Well, the Cavaliers already have plenty of those, in case you didn't notice, with Irving and James and sometimes with Kevin Love on the post. But, I mean, Smith is going to be and always was going to be the biggest beneficiary of the floor spacing that the Cavaliers have talked about ever since bringing in Griffin as a general manager. And then you mentioned his defense, too. I mean, 5 steals a night ago. You know, some of them were just being at the right place at the right time, and others were, you know, he snuck his nose into somewhere it really didn't belong, and it's like, oh, hey, here's the basketball, here's another couple extra possessions. So, yeah, I mean, J.R. Smith has been an absolute godsend for the Cavaliers at the 2 spot. He's done really well mixing into the starting lineup because, you know, Shumpert really isn't quite there yet to be a starter at shooting guard just yet. But, you know, Smith has filled that void quite nicely, and I think they're going to continue to start J.R. Smith along with Irving and James right in between those two for as long as it continues to work.
Yeah, and they continue to grow together. But, I mean, again, just in general, the refreshingness to me wasn't just what he brought, because I knew what J.R. Smith could do on the court when he's right, man. It was the attitude, and thus far, I mean, just bam. And that's, again, I keep going back to, and I'll ask you your thoughts, man. Jonathan Knight and I were saying earlier, and you and I said, I think last week, the biggest hope is that these guys aren't peaking early, like those 2009, 2010 Cavs teams, man. It seemed like, you know, they may have hit it their peak just too early heading into the playoffs. But something else besides that, and I'm curious your thoughts on that. I mentioned to Jonathan Knight that I wanted to bring this up earlier, and then our conversation went in a different direction. But I noticed yesterday, you look, you know me, I love to go dig up the different statistical, some of the stats that aren't just the average ones that are out there. And when you look at the breakdown, one of the ones that was a big focus that was brought to LeBron's attention yesterday before the game was about how much the Cavs rely on isolation plays. And I actually read a big breakdown about the comparisons to perhaps the two Heat teams that won the championship there that LeBron was just on, and how they never ranked in the top 5 in the percentage of their plays that were basically one-on-one plays, LeBron, Kyrie, whatever, the other way around. They were always within the 8 to 10 range in the league because in the playoffs, and we saw this firsthand for those LeBron teams in Cleveland, teams that are high on isolation percentage plays, they get shut down in the playoffs because a team can say, okay, we're going to shut down LeBron, or we're going to make sure that LeBron's the only person that scores and we'll just shut everybody else down, which is what teams were doing to the Cavs before. But not only have the Cavs been working on that, but literally yesterday, LeBron took that information before the game, and then the Cavs went out there and actively pursued the ball movement and the number of assists, and then LeBron circles back to it with the media after the game, showing that he's very much aware of that, and that's one of the differences by having a deep team that the Cavs have to continue to do. I hate that stat that they were pointing out about LeBron, when he doesn't play, the Cavs. No, it can't be like that. The Cavs have to be at a level where they can win any night without LeBron. They might not always do it, but they have to be able to win on any given night without LeBron. And if they do, as I said, that's when everybody else starts playing for second place.
Well, and the thing, too, is, Jerry, I mean, they do have the pieces in order to win a lot of those one-on-one matchups. I mean, Kyrie Irving is going to win just about every one-on-one matchup that he is given. LeBron is no different. If you put Love on the block, there are not many people that would be able to slow Love down, about 12 or 15 feet away from the rim. But, David Blatt was asked about that, too, yesterday prior to the game, and he's in agreement with LeBron. He says, well, if it works for you now, great, but come April and May, that's probably something that they do want to get away from. But the good thing is for the Cavs is that they're 51 games in, and they still have 31 games left to try to create that chemistry and that synergy, try to incorporate the new pieces into the deal. Because you still have to remember, as well as Smith and Mozgov and other new players have played in the system, they're still only been here for about a month. I mean, that is a very short time frame in the grand scheme of things. So just give it more time. They'll be able to work the new pieces in there and move the ball to where ultimately Blatt likes the ball movement. And sticking with the original plan when they brought Blatt in to Cleveland was to have the ball movement sort of reminiscent of the San Antonio Spurs and the way that the Atlanta Hawks have been playing right now. They'll get it. They'll get it.
Absolutely. Let me ask you, I saw Bruce in the chat room. I got to say, I get the... you got to have a ton of guys on the perimeter. We were mentioning earlier why Love plays, even though you want him to post up more. I was enjoying listening to Barkley and Reggie argue during the game about the usage of Kevin Love, and Reggie seemed to get it a bit more than Charles Barkley did about how you can't have a big body down there just clogging up the lane when you have two dribble drivers like you've got it with LeBron and Kyrie Irving, and that's such a big part of, they need the ability to do that, even though in certain situations you're definitely going to switch to a half-court set and you're going to post those guys up and all that. It was funny listening to them argue, but all season long I've always kind of had a bit of a problem with the trigger finger. The Cavs have not seen a three-pointer that they're afraid to take, which is good because you got a lot of shooters, and I get it, and you also... that's going to be a function of always having people away from the basket because that's where guys are finding shots. But do you worry that, again, I mean, and what about Coach Blatt, about too much over-reliance on the three-pointer? Because there's sometimes when I watch teams come back when they're down these big double-digit deficits, that's usually when I'll see them cut into the lead, is when the Cavs come down, take up a long shot, miss it, other team comes down and scores. You come up and gun a couple of threes that don't go in a row, and a team can cut out a 10-point deficit just like that. So does it worry you sometimes, the over-reliance on the three-pointer, especially come playoff time?
Yeah, it does a little bit, Jerry. And the thing about the three ball is, I mean, like you had just touched base on, you can shoot yourself, you can shoot the other team out of the gym, or you can shoot yourself out of the game. I mean, you're kind of in a situation right now, especially with the addition of J.R. Smith, a guy who's going to take anywhere from probably a minimum of 5 three-ball attempts to upwards of 9 or 10 three-ball attempts a game. You tend to live and die by that a little bit, and I know that that's definitely something that Blatt and the coaching staff have looked into. I mean, they took 30 three-point attempts last night, and shot at only a 26.7% clip. So just by looking at that stat alone, you have to at least be a little bit concerned as to, how many of those three balls are even quality three balls, how many of those are contested, how many of them are just because, you're feeling it at the right moment, but, hey, you do something at the last minute and maybe you throw up a brick. But, I would definitely say that that's one thing on the Cavaliers' to-do list, going into the All-Star break, past the All-Star break, and ultimately getting closer to mid-April, is that I think they do want to try to cut down a little bit on the three-point shots and get those quality looks, those open looks from the corner. With Kevin Love, he does like to shoot that three. I think most of the shots that he took yesterday from behind the arc were solely to get him going and develop something early because he was coming off of a 5-point game against the Philadelphia 76ers team. Now, that's not always going to be the case, although it has been earlier in the season because Love wants to establish himself as a three-point shooter with his new team. But as we get deeper into the season, I would expect the three-point shooting, just the pure number of looks, to decrease to some degree. But again, it really all depends on what the defense gives you and who's feeling the hot hand and when.
For sure. Eddy Jansen, More Than a Fan, Cleveland. We're talking some Cavaliers here quickly before we look at the couple of games they've got coming up this weekend. You were there last night. No? Yes?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, what was, if you could, maybe you don't know, what was the actual back and forth with Chris Paul and the female official last night? Of course, everybody knows he got teed up during the game, and a bunch of technicals. There was technical. It was like Oprah, tech for you, tech for you, tech for you. They were going out yesterday. But do you know perhaps what the actual exchange was between the female official and Chris Paul last night?
I do not, although I watched the play as it happened. There were a couple of technical fouls that led up to that one. I think of the 5 technical fouls there were, Chris Paul's was probably either the 4th or maybe even the last one. And to me, just watching it happen, it kind of felt as if, well, we've already got all these technicals. Now the leader of the ring, Chris Paul, the unsung leader of the Clippers, has to step in and stick up for his teammates. And I don't think that the official that called the technical on him was too appreciative of that. Now, I did not go to the Clippers locker room last night to ask Chris Paul about that myself. But yeah, Chris Paul is not a guy who you see very animated very often, so it was definitely something that would have rubbed him the wrong way, and it takes a lot for a pretty quiet guy like CP3 to come up and say something. So maybe he does have a point, but I'm sure the league is looking into it a little bit more as we speak.
Well, here's the thing. I've got Chris Paul's statement from last night, and everybody's, all the headlines are, they used the couple of quotes about deplores the personal and unprofessional comments by Chris Paul. That's what the Referees Association said. But that makes it seem like the comments were about her being female or something like that. I think people are making a nasty headline out of something not. It was much more about just not being a professional, like a rookie. It's a first-time official, first season. Just like criticizing any male rookie official. I think people quick, especially some more liberal types, looking to jump and make a sexist thing out of that. But I listened to what Chris Paul said. He said the tech was ridiculous, but he said literally all he said was he answered the question, and she said, that's a technical. And he said, why? And then boom, she teched him up. And he said it was really just a simple conversation, nothing blatantly disrespectful. What the NBA Referees Association is mad about, that after the game, he said, well, if they can't figure that out, then maybe she doesn't belong. Again, not speaking about because she's a woman, she doesn't belong. It's because she didn't get the call right. Maybe she's not in the right level for where her experience level is, but quickly people jumped on that. Chris Paul, who's a very he's Chris Paul's one of the good guys in the NBA. I think a lot of people know that, but people tried to make it go in a different direction than it was meant.
Yeah, I'm not really even sure if that was a direction in which Chris had foreseen the situation going, and that's kind of why you have to be careful in that type of situation. You always got to watch what you say and who you say it to. My gut feeling is that the first year official thing probably may have had something to do with it, but I mean, it's hard to tell, especially in the heat of the moment when your team is down by 25 or 30 points at the time, and things just kind of tend to slip out a little bit. But I would be surprised if the remarks were intended to be sexist or whatever. I'd be shocked if that came from one of the faces of the NBA in Chris Paul. But I mean, you never know. You just never know these days.
Well, it's the headlines. It's what gets people don't always read the stories. The average guy goes through their Twitter. Sometimes you got time to read the stories. Sometimes you just see the headlines. I actually had a fan this morning. I woke up and I had a message on there, and it was like, man, what about Chris Paul? Man, did he really disrespect the girl like that? I always like Chris Paul. And I'm like, no. I'm like, all he did was question why he got the technical and questioned whether the official knew what they were talking about. I don't think it mattered. It just so happened that she was a female, but it was the fact that she's a rookie and not a female that he was questioning. But that'll just show you that dude misread the headline, and if you don't, then it just appears like, oh, Chris Paul must have called her out of her name, must have disrespected her because she's a female. No, he disrespected her because he thought that she made a bad call. He'll get fined for it. Obviously you don't question the officials in the NBA at all, and so he'll definitely get fined for it. But that stuff bothers me, Eddie. And you're a media guy. You're a print media guy too. You know where I'm coming from. I think people in media in general twist those headlines up in a way to, obviously get maximum reaction and maximum clicks or whatever. And it just drives me nuts because not everybody follows through and reads the details. Some people just go off of what they see real big. And it drives me nuts because it's disingenuous. It's bad media. And then people get accused of, or people think that they did or said things that they in any way didn't do.
Yeah, and that is the number one reason right there, Jerry, that you cannot believe everything that you read, especially in today's world where we've got credible sources, we have uncredible sources, and it's getting increasingly difficult to differentiate between the two because this type of media, it travels so quickly in today's world. I mean, everything is just, it's boom, it's instant. It's like instant offense, kind of like J.R. Smith. But anyways, I really don't expect this whole situation to really blow up into what the media has made it out to be. But then again, only time will tell.
And then again, who thought deflated footballs was going to be that big of a deal either? We see what happened with that. So anyways, Cavaliers now looking to keep it going. By the time next week hits and we get back here, they could have added a couple to this streak. And what do you think here? Looking at this weekend, two very winnable games for the Cavs. You've got Indiana and then the Lakers, national TV here. The Lakers was the team that started this thing when you went to L.A. and got the first victory of it. Here you circle back around, but in between, back-to-back here tonight. Coming off of a big emotional night with the win over the Clippers, of course you look for a letdown. It's hard to follow that up with another effort back-to-back, but that's what they're going to need to do tonight to take care of Indiana before you can get to the Lakers on Sunday.
Yeah, it's very conceivable that they really could carry this win streak into the All-Star break with the next four because they have, after those two games, they have Miami, which is at home on a Wednesday, and then they go to Chicago. I think Chicago is the second night of a back-to-back. But, I mean, you look at all of the teams across the NBA, even the powerhouse teams in the West, and really the Cavs are at a point where they can compete and they can win against any team in the NBA just based off the way that they're playing right now. Really, the only thing that's going to end this win streak and ultimately beat the Cavs is themselves. I mean, sometimes you can be your own worst enemy, but in terms of matchups and just the teams that they are going to be facing prior to the All-Star break, there is no reason at all they couldn't be looking at, I think it would be 16 or 17 in a row heading into the All-Star break and setting a franchise record for the longest streak. I mean, that would be a really important one to get tonight against a very sure-handed Indiana team, but an Indiana team that really does not have a go-to scorer. They kind of have a chippy little offense in terms of where they get their production from. So, yeah, I mean, going forward, there's no reason that the Cavaliers couldn't really begin to push this win streak into something special, possibly even 19 or 20 in a row like Atlanta, and possibly exceed Atlanta's win streak. It's going to be exciting to watch because they're playing some great, great basketball, Jerry.
Oh, God, yeah. The key for them is to avoid what we just did and just keep taking it one day at a time. Because I did the same thing you did. I looked ahead to the All-Star break the other day with a buddy, and I was like, man, they could win out to the All-Star break. They've got a couple of tough ones here. Clippers were one of them. And after last night, I go, they could easily run this thing out to the All-Star break, man. And it is incredibly fun to watch. Speaking of the All-Star break, I want to wrap it up with this. Let's talk about Kyrie Irving in the three-point contest. But basketball fans are in for a treat, and I'm sure you probably agree here. But this upcoming three-point, I don't get into the dunk thing anymore. They've screwed that all up for my concerns. But the three-point is the one All-Star break thing that I do get into. And, man, look at the field that Kyrie's up against. I mean, you have the best three-point shooters in the NBA. You got Kyle Korver, J.J. Redick, Curry, and Klay Thompson from Golden State. Harden's in there. Kyrie, Wesley Matthews, Bellinelli from the Spurs. I mean, that is going to be one hell of a three-point shootout.
Yeah, no question about it, Jerry, no question about it. And, one thing that could be working in Kyrie's favor as of late is that Redick did not play last night. Jamal Crawford started in his place, and Redick sat because he's got I believe it's a lower back injury. Also, Korver the other night in an Atlanta win, he only went 1 for 6. The funny thing was that the team shot well over 40% from three-point range, and I think they made about 7 or 8 of them. And that's with Korver, their best three-point shooter, the best and most accurate three-point shooter in the NBA right now, only going 16% on one make. So, in terms of momentum going into the three-point shooting contest, I think Kyrie probably is a middle-of-the-pack type of guy, but boy, Steph Curry, I mean, the other night against Dallas, I mean, you just flip a switch and it's splash after splash after splash. So, yeah, it's as loaded a three-point contest as I can remember in the last decade or so, and probably one for the ages as well.
I'll tell you, man. The guys that listen know I've mentioned that I will occasionally mess around with a little NBA 2K15. Last night, I jumped online. This cat from California jumped on. We played against each other, Cavs and the Warriors. When I got done with this game, I said, God help the Cavs if they have to play Golden State, because I swear, it was just shot after shot. It doesn't matter how good the defense you play. I know I'm jokingly talking about a video game, but I watched the Cavs' future in front of me, and I said, man, doesn't matter how good you are. This team just shoots and shoots and shoots some more. And if you stop one, they got another one over there that shoots just as much as the other one, and they make them. I mean, Golden State is a hell of a team over there, man. And not just like a put together for a run. This is a team that's going to every year be right there, reload and take another shot because they're young. They're all coming up together, man. I love watching that Golden State team play. If you're into offense, now of course I prefer a different style, but man, I watch them and I just go, I don't care. I don't care if they don't play defense. I just watch them run up and down the court and just ball, man.
You think that Mark Jackson was onto something when in 2011 he said that Curry and Thompson are going to be I think he said it was the best three-point shooting pair of all time. Well, there's probably a little bit of truth to that coming from their now former head coach and Mark Jackson. And something that people have forgotten about too, Jerry, is that one of the teams that at one point over the summer that was, I guess you could say, a leading candidate to land now current Cavaliers power forward Kevin Love was Golden State. Yeah. And one of the pieces, in fact, the main piece that was rumored to go to Minnesota was Klay Thompson. Well, they decided to keep them together, and look where it's gotten them. Two best of three-point shooting pairs in the NBA. And it's really amazing to watch because, Thompson is just so long and gets such good extension off of his shots, and Curry just puts it up, and it just goes in every time. I mean, it's just really something to behold, and hopefully going forward, I think ultimately what would benefit Kyrie Irving the best from this three-point shot, regardless of if he wins it or not, is to take something from the game of Curry and Thompson and hopefully use it to the Cavaliers' benefit going forward in the playoffs.
For sure. Man, a lot of fun, man. A lot of fun conversation here, you and I. It makes it a lot more fun to talk about things from this end. As Bruce said in the chat room, by the way, hey, last night, how many of the reporters were asking David Blatt if he was worried about his job last night? I'm just curious how many of those. Yeah, those questions don't exist anymore. That is my favorite thing about all of this. I did not plan on the Cavs winning a championship until perhaps next season at the soonest. So I didn't already throw the parade. I thought they'd be a good team and get better from here. The thing that I'm most happy about with a 12-game winning streak and being this much over 500 and all of that is that David Blatt survived. Because what did we say for the last few weeks? The thing that scared me the most before they got hot was that we were going to have the Cavaliers run him out of town before we even had a chance to find out if he was as good as everybody said he was when he came over. And to a man, we were told how great of a head coach David Blatt was. My biggest worry was that we would never find out here in Cleveland because he would get washed out with all the craziness. And that's what I'm most happy about, is that he did survive that, and now we get a chance to see what he can be and what he can do, because I've thought all along, man, this many people don't say how great a guy is unless there's truly something there.
Yeah, and I'm really happy that Blatt was able to last through this too. And, you really can't hold a coach accountable for losing a guy like LeBron James for 2 weeks. I mean, it's especially when it was self-imposed by the Cavaliers to try to sit him down. I mean, ultimately, they made the best decision. I mean, he's got a lot of I guess you could say, miles on him, and look what it's done for LeBron James. I mean, he's got his jump back, he's got his bounce back, he's got everything that he needs to get back to the LeBron James of old by taking a little bit of a break from the game for 14 days. But hey, I mean, Blatt is a great guy. I love him. He's super personable, very approachable, and easy to talk to. And a hell of a basketball mind as well. I mean, he's really one of the top offensive minds in the NBA already as it sits.
You heard Chuck say that last night. He goes, boy, David Blatt, first chance I got to talk with him. I've never met the man before. He's a hell of a guy, hell of a coach, entertaining, interesting, smart to the game. And I'm like, yeah, man, a lot of people sit back and wait and then see. But, again, just glad he didn't get run, because it could have been, man, if he luckily, he's not the rookie that some people act like he is. I always laugh at that. Some of the media early on said that he was, had too much of an ego because he kept reminding them that he's done this about 800 or 900 times before. But, now you see why. And I think that helped him, too, because he knew, and he probably knew, hey, look, it's whatever's going to happen is going to happen. This is out of my control, man, and it all worked out. But it could work out to the best for the Cavs, man. Good weekend coming up for the Cavs. They got the Pacers, got the Lakers next week, couple more games, and then we're heading into the All-Star break. Can't wait to catch up with you next week. We'll see if this streak continues or do they start another one, my man. Either way, should be a lot of fun, as we both said. Clearly, we're laughing a lot here, having a lot of fun watching the Cavaliers season so far.
Yeah, Jerry, I still don't think they're going to end up catching the Hawks. They're just too far ahead at this point right now. But, I mean, a nice solid 2 seed, yep. I'm envisioning is what the Cavaliers will end up, and probably, most likely, a seat in the Eastern Conference Finals.
I agree with you. We were just talking about that earlier, Jonathan Knight. 10.5 in 30 or whatever's left to play, that would require not just you staying hot, but Atlanta going cold at the same time. Maybe too much to dig out of that. But, yeah, easily a second seed here for sure. And perhaps that seeding works out as well, because as it looks now, you see, if it ended today, Washington and Chicago would be a first-round matchup. That's two of the better playoff teams, and one of them would be knocking the other one out in the first round of the playoffs. So, yeah, I see them I think they make a run. I think they end up within a handful of games of number one, but 10.5 with 30-plus to play is just too much ground to make up, barring a complete collapse from Atlanta. But either way, it'll be fun watching them chip away at that one too, my man. And it'll be fun coming back next week, you and I, and talking some more Cavs hoops.
All right, J-Rocc, we will talk to you later, and you have a good weekend, buddy.
You too, my man, Eddy Jansen. You guys can check him out, MTAFCleveland.com. More Than a Fan Cleveland is the site. You can tweet with them at Eddy Jansen, EDDY Jansen, number 30 at Twitter. That's it. Tweet with them at Eddy Jansen 30. I don't know what I was about to say there. I know that we are up against it. I'm late. I thought we were going to have a short show today. Instead, we had a long show today. I've got a lot to get into before I get to Willoughby South. I'm calling some basketball. Speaking of hoops, I'm calling some hoops tonight. Madison visits Willoughby South tonight. I'll go back to South and call that one. WINTradio.com if you guys are interested in that one. Check me out tonight. Tomorrow, for those of you into the pro wrestling deal, my wrestling buffs out there, I'll be in Erie, Pennsylvania. So if you're listening and you're my PA, there's a lot of you guys in Pennsylvania that listen. A lot of you in Erie. Come on out. Check us out tomorrow night. PWR, RampageWrestling.com. RampageWrestling.com is the website. Check out all the information. Should be a great show tomorrow night. Come on and check it out. And this weekend, as we just said, a lot for you guys to check out. Tonight, I'm going to be busy calling hoops. You guys be busy either watching them. You got some Cavaliers hoops tonight that we just talked about with the Pacers. Of course, Monsters hockey in action here tonight. Monsters have a double shot at the Q. Tonight, it's Real Heroes Night down at Quicken Loans Arena for the Lake Erie Monsters as they take on Toronto. 7:30 puck drop at the Q. Tomorrow, Cleveland Cavaliers night as Hamilton visits the Monsters. 7 p.m. puck drop, and they're doing Tristan Thompson Monsters jersey bobblehead giveaway, and that should be a lot of fun. And the Monsters will be wearing their special Cleveland Cavaliers themed outfits. So outfits like they're 3-year-olds and their mom dressed them up for the game. Anyways, their uniforms will be Cleveland Cavaliers wine and gold. That should be cool. So go check that out tonight, tomorrow. Monsters at Toronto, 7:30 tonight. Hamilton on Saturday, 7 p.m. Sunday, Cavs back at it at the Q. They've got the Lakers on national TV. 3:30, I believe, is the tip-off on that one. That'll be a lot of fun. I'll be back home from my weekend festivities, ready to dive into that one. Buckeyes are playing this weekend. Vikings are playing this weekend. Let's see, Buckeyes are on Sunday, 5:30 on the Big Ten Network. They've got Rutgers, a road game. Mark Loving, I believe, will still be out for that one as he's indefinitely suspended. I still don't have any reasoning for that to give you guys, but I don't think he's back by then, but we'll find out. Buckeyes, Rutgers, 5:30 on Sunday. Vikings this weekend, they get back into action. They host Wright State tomorrow afternoon, 2 p.m. 12:20 see, they always get it wrong. 12:20 is WHKW. 14:20 is WHK. Either way, they'll be on the radio with my man Al Pulowski calling the action, and I believe it's a Sports Time Ohio game. So those of you here locally or with the dish, you can check out the Vikings maybe for the first time this season as they are on Sports Time Ohio. 3-game homestand wraps up Wright State, 2 p.m. Vikes coming in hot. They've won 5 of 6, 14-10 overall. First place in the Horizon League at 8-2. Wright State comes in 11-12 on the season. Coach Waters talked the other day about how really this team turned itself around ever since when he was on the show. He told us about the hour plus, 90 minutes actually, that he spent really getting into the guys after that loss at Bowling Green earlier in the season when they dropped under 500 for the first time. It was about the middle of December. 90 minutes he went off on that team. But since then, they have bounced back in a big way. Coach Waters watched his... It was funny. I saw in a newspaper article, somebody asked him about it and said, did they talk? He said, no. I did the talking. That's what he said here on the show, too. But they were having some trouble figuring out who was going to step up. Bryn Forbes was out of the way. There was a void. There were extra shots. There was a lot of things that were wrong with the Vikings, but they've buckled it down and really turned it around since that point in time. One of the hottest teams in the NCAA, and now starting to pull it together just in time to... I told you guys the other day, just in time for March, the Vikings are turning into one of those mid-majors to watch out for. They can make some noise come tournament time, especially, man, they can win the Horizon League tournament, and they can be one of those lower seeds that's capable of knocking somebody off on that opening bracket of the NCAA tournament. So Vikings back at it this weekend as well, you guys. Check them out. We'll talk about that on Monday. We'll talk about the Cavaliers, talk about the Buckeyes. I see you, Charles. I see you. Jackets are playing tomorrow, 7 p.m. puck drop for them, taking on Ottawa. Tonight, they're dropping the puck at 7 against St. Louis. See, Charles, making sure that I'm up on that. So no matter what your deal is, you got a lot of stuff to get into this weekend. Come Monday, guess what Monday is? The last Monday without baseball here on the Sports Fix of some kind, as our countdown is complete. Yeah, Bruce, March Madness. Bruce asked in the chat room, March Madness for the Vikings. Absolutely. No doubt they can win the Horizon League tournament. Horizon League tournament's guaranteed a spot in the March Madness. I'm not saying the Vikings go on any kind of a run in the tournament, but to me, they could scare a team in the tournament, no doubt. They could win an early bracket round. I'm not saying they can make a big, deep run, but they can play the kind of basketball that would be successful in March Madness. I absolutely think that they make the tournament. The only thing that can stop them is obviously themselves slipping up in the Horizon League tournament, but they are definitely turned around from the beginning part of the season. That's for sure, man. Matter of fact, I want to get Coach Waters on here in the next week or so and catch up with him as the Vikings prepare to make that run for some March Madness. All right, guys, you know what you're doing. You don't need me to set the stage anymore. I'm going to get out of here, go call some Willoughby South basketball, get in the ring tomorrow, watch some Cavs and Lakers on national TV on Sunday, and then do the Sports Fix thing with you on Monday. Guys, enjoy whatever you're doing this weekend. I don't know about the weather, but hey, do what you can do. Work around the snowdrifts. Have some fun. Come on back here live Monday, noon. Same bad time, same bad channel. However you did it today, do it again on Monday live across the Sports Fix Radio Network. Until then, enjoy your weekend. If I see you, say hi. If I don't, I'll see you Monday. We love you, Cleveland and beyond. We'll see you Monday right here on the Sports Fix. We love you guys. We'll see you Monday.